Costumes and silk nightgowns were a hit with 30 to 35-year-old male viewers who had no idea that nude images of all the models are easily accessible on the internet. And the show did equally well with 10 to 12-and-a-half-year-old boys who are going to have their minds blown when they finally get around their parents' internet blockers. CBS executives are touting the broadcast as breakthrough programming for people who are excited by the tops of boobs. Producer Dave Mitchell told Variety, quote, "The $2.5 million fantasy bra is a big draw with women who shop at Victoria's Secret, and an even bigger draw with men who've never seen or heard about sex before." The runway show drew expected outrage from the Christian Family Research Council. Executive Director Kathy Rouse charged that the event degrades women by objectifying them, most likely because she's never seen a Ukrainian prostitute receive a bukkake shower from a gang of cracked-out Albanian teens.
This is the Onion News Network.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
What is up, all of our liberty-loving friends? This is a special episode of Dumb Bleep of the Year. This is one of our recap episodes for the voting for Dumb Bleep of the Year. So we're going to be covering each month, and then the winners of each month will go into a quarterly semifinal, and then we'll bring that into the final four. And of course, the live group, the Fed Haters Club, will be voting on what's going to win Dumb Bleep of the Year. The winner will get a trophy that says that they won Dumb Bleep of the Year, and the person who submitted that specific Dumb Bleep in the live group, or it could be on Twitter, or it could just be me, will get a trophy to put on their mantle at home. So let's get in to Dumb Bleep of the Year. Charlie, you watch hockey. What did you think about this
Time for some... I don't know. I thought the whole situation was gay.
This is one of the gayer hockey situations we've had to deal with in a while.
Yeah, it is.
So, what's his name? Provorov or something like that?
I honestly don't know what his name is. I heard about So,
Provolov?
Hockey does this thing called Hockey is for Everyone, and it's where they wear their gay jerseys for practice. It's true.
It's true.
And his name is Ivan
Provorov.
Provorov. Sounds Russian.
He is Russian.
Yeah, there you go.
I believe. He says he's Russian Orthodox. Sorry, I don't know if he's actually from Russia proper. I'm not sure. He is very much Russian, Costco says.
Could be from Ukraine.
Okay, so screw this guy.
Yeah.
Surprised they didn't just hang him out there on the rink.
Yeah. So they do this thing every year. You know, hockey is for everyone. I've been to the games. I've been to the games where this happens. They wear their colorful warm-up jerseys or whatever. And this guy decided that he wasn't going to participate. He was like, "Yeah, I'm not wearing that gay jersey." You know?
Yeah.
That's what he said. And now there's a big uproar about it. So
I got you.
Really dumb.
Sorry, I was just making sure I put out the proper Office Space gift to go along with what Magoo was saying in there. So we got a video. He didn't wear the jersey for warm-ups, and everyone is very, very upset. That's the gist of the situation. Mm-hmm. And by upset, I mean like this is the worst thing to happen in hockey in
since
recent
Jan 6.
Yeah. That's a date they all observed clearly, but this is the worst part. It's not as bad as Jan 6, I guess. So that's always going to...
I mean, one person not participating in this means hockey isn't for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So...
Well, let's say a couple things here. Frank Saravelli says, here's the NHL's response. We'll just tell you the NHL's response. He said, Hockey's for Everyone is the umbrella initiative under which the league encourages clubs to celebrate the diversity that exists in their respective markets and to work to achieve more welcoming and inclusive environments for all fans. Did they have ChatGPT write this, you think? Like, write a corporate BS response to a a gay controversy. Yeah. Yes. Clubs decide whom to celebrate, when and how, with league counsel and support. players are free to decide which initiatives to support, and we continue to encourage their voices and perspectives on social and cultural issues.
Because it's about diversity, right?
It's you would think.
Yeah.
You would think it is.
I feel like this guy has a diverse opinion.
But that's not the
He's
tolerance.
The only one.
That's not the tolerance that we live under right now.
No.
You have to wear, and everyone has made this comparison, you have to wear the ribbon. That's from the Seinfeld episode. And that's what you got to do. A comment was ridiculous. It's a weak response. He's an employee of the Flyers. He should be held accountable. He should have not played. This is about acceptance, diversity, and inclusion.
Except for his diversity.
No, that's true. There's a diversity totem pole.
Yeah.
And they were celebrating a specific part. Not good at NHL. I always thought that it was about playing hockey.
The National Hockey League?
Winning games.
The National Hockey League?
Yeah.
No, it's an entertainment business.
It's about acceptance, diversity, and inclusion. Mm-hmm. Turns out that's why I wasn't watching it this whole time, I guess. That's what was going on.
Yeah. This video's great.
Got a nice little video ready to go.
Everybody, I respect everybody's choices. My choice is to stay true to myself and my religion. That's all I'm going to say.
The theme from the National Hockey League is hockey is for everyone. The theme is not hockey is for everyone, ... unless you don't believe in gay rights, then do whatever you want. If the National Hockey League is going to do this, if any league is going to do this, do it properly or reevaluate what you're doing. Because there's not a lot of repercussions that I'm seeing from any league. Now, it could change with the NHL. I think you fine the Flyers $1 million for this. I'm not kidding. Figure this out and stop offending people on nights where it's not about that. It's supposed to be about inclusivity. The National Hockey League need to attack this and figure this out.
I know what we need. Gay reparations. The damage has been done. Not only should they fine the Flyers, they should fine him, the player, and then fine everyone else
who isn't gay,
who did participate, and who's not gay.
Yes,
so that we can have gay reparations.
Maybe gay people go to games for free for 250 years, something like that.
Fine the Flyers $1 million. I'm not kidding.
No,
fine the Flyers $1 million. I'm not kidding.
Well, it was just a minute ago we were talking about the uproar that was happening with FIFA fever, where if you were seen with so much as a rainbow anywhere, you had to fear for your life, imprisonment, or death.
Yeah.
Seriously. So, and now here we are.
It's the same thing.
What's your point? Yes, that literally you would get in trouble for wearing a rainbow anything. Like it put you in prison or something. They were strict about that. That's not what this is. They're requiring everyone to wear the ribbon, to wear the jersey. And they're getting in trouble for not doing it.
They're not requiring.
Well, I mean, she's requiring.
Right.
She'd have this guy strung up in the street in a second.
They want tyranny in the opposite form.
Yes.
It's like
different tyranny.
They don't. It's like you don't see the difference or see the irony in the situation. It's like, oh, Qatar is so tyrannical. They won't let you wear rainbow anything. But we're not tyrannical for trying to force you to wear something.
I just think the NHL has to do something here. This is not good enough. This is not good enough. Hockey is for everyone, ... unless you don't agree with gay rights is not the phrasing of this.
No one told him, he didn't tell anyone that they couldn't go anywhere, they couldn't play hockey, or the other people on his team couldn't wear a rainbow jersey, or they, couldn't dance around with tassels or whatever the hell they were doing during warm-ups.
Tampa Bay Lightning and the Florida Panthers can't even say gay in their state.
Not even the Jacksonville Jaguars. They can't say gay either.
We're talking about hockey, Nate.
I'm talking about all the teams.
Tampa Bay Lightning, Florida Panthers. It's hockey, okay?
I don't know my hockey.
So if they can't say gay, I wonder if they in Florida if they wore their pride jerseys.
I don't know. They wouldn't be able
You're either in this or you're not. And one last point. Nothing scares me more than any human being who says, I'm not doing this because of my religious beliefs. Because when you looked in people's lives, you normally say that publicly, you'd throw up at what you saw. So don't give me that. With respect.
I said with all due respect.
Nothing scares him more than someone who says, this goes against my religious beliefs. That's the scariest people in the world, man.
It is.
It is.
Domestic terrorism, honestly. I like what T-Dub said here, and we can add to it, but he's like, what do you mean you don't want to wear your nipple tassels during the game to support pride?
Eventually, I wanted to play the first little bit of this.
What do you mean you're not going to wear these assless chaps skating around the ice? You know?
Cosmo Crane.
Okay. You're checked in?
Yeah, thank you.
Here's your AIDS ribbon.
No thanks.
You don't want to wear an AIDS ribbon?
No.
But you have to wear an AIDS ribbon.
I have to?
Yes.
Yeah, see, that's why I don't want to.
But everyone wears the ribbon. You must wear the ribbon.
What you are? You're a ribbon bully.
Hey, you, come back here! Come back here and put this on!
Hey, where's your ribbon? Oh, I don't wear the ribbon.
You don't wear the ribbon? Aren't you against AIDS?
Yeah, I'm against AIDS. I mean, I'm walking, aren't I? Just don't wear the ribbon.
Who do you think you are?
Put the ribbon on.
Hey, Cedric, Bob, this guy won't wear a ribbon.
Who? Who doesn't want to wear the ribbon?
I forgot how good the bass playing is for that.
Oh, it's good stuff.
Such good stuff.
It's the same. It's the same thing. That's why everyone's been making this comparison. It's the same thing with masks and all that stuff going on.
What a gay dumb.
That was. Oh, and sadly, for the overall anyone upset about this, it does seem to be that his jerseys sold out online. And I looked earlier.
Really, this is really damaging to the NHL.
They're very upset about it. I bet.
Probably covering the fine they're about to get.
Yeah. So, and is that because everyone just hates the gays? Is that what's going on? I think it's probably because people are trying to funnel money to Vladimir Putin.
Who hates gays, obviously.
Yeah. That's because the guy's Russian and they're going to ship him back.
Yeah.
Or they want to stand up for someone's right to just not agree with. The guy was polite about it. He said, hey, you guys make your choices.
I make mine.
I make mine.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be fine.
Yeah.
Everything's good.
Now, is it illegal to be gay in Russia? I don't know if it is.
I have no clue.
Obviously, we don't agree with it being illegal to be gay.
No, I mean, this has nothing to do with gay whatsoever.
Yeah.
This has to do with...
We have plenty of gay friends.
Yeah.
We love the gays.
These same people, by the way, were upset when...
I especially love the gays that menstruate.
I seem to remember a lot of lefties... Now, this is probably hypocritical on both sides, but, Colin Kaepernick, he did the whole kneeling down thing during the anthem.
For gay.
And I thought that was okay. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people on the right are, love America and all that, get really offended by that. Like, you got to stand up for this thing or you hate the troops or whatever. And it's kind of the same thing, just in reverse right now. Yep. Only a little different. Same, but different.
The rapidly rising I don't know.
Ron DeSantis says Florida shouldn't require unanimous juries for death sentences. DeSantis says Florida should not require unanimous juries for death sentences. Now, to clarify, he does not mean for the conviction. He means for the sentence that's carried out after the... I want to clear that because when I first read it, I was like, for conviction for first-degree murder or something like that? No, it's for the sentence. Still don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah, terrible
at
idea.
all.
While addressing a gathering of law enforcement officers on Monday, Ron DeSantis said he hopes to change state law to make it easier to execute convicted criminals. Calling it one of the things we have to address, DeSantis said that a supermajority of jurors ought to be sufficient to sentence someone to death. If just one juror vetoes it, then you end up not getting the sentence. DeSantis said, maybe 8 out of 12 have to agree or something, but we can't be in a situation where one person can just derail this. DeSantis was expressing his frustration with the decision of a jury in November to sentence Nicholas Cruz, who killed 17 people at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in 2018, to life in prison rather than handing down the death penalty. Now, I used to be, an advocate for the death penalty. I used to say, like, an eye for an eye.
Yeah.
Like, if you...
Well, personally, that is still what I believe. I just don't trust the government to do it.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
That's 100% the problem. And we've seen over and over and over again, and the stats play out. We know that at least 30%, I think it's 30%.
It was a lot. I know they've had, hundreds overturned, and who knows how many people actually got executed.
So that means we've killed people who did nothing, which is so wrong. I mean, could you imagine? Like, imagine yourself or your family member in that position, and the state kills them, and then what's the repercussion on that? Nothing.
I also, they use DNA on that stuff. I still wouldn't go with the death penalty for a DNA case where they have DNA somewhere, because it is the government who is gathering the evidence and putting it out in trial against you. and I don't trust them to deliver my gall-darn mail. All right? So I don't trust them to gather evidence that could take someone's life away.
Every time we have a package delayed in Amazon, it's usually being shipped by USPS.
Yeah.
Every time. Like 2-day shipping is like, oh, there was a delay. And you notice right on there it says being delivered by USPS.
Like,
every time.
That's not a delay.
Yeah.
They're trying to cut back
those people to kill people? They can't even deliver the mail.
Yeah, I do not agree with postal workers being able to do death sentences. I don't think that would be a good idea. The thing is, we don't agree with it in the first place. And now he's saying that it shouldn't take the entire jury to give someone a death sentence. And I get that that's the actual sentence. There's another jury's already convicted the person. Or I guess it's the same jury, right?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure how it works in Florida.
I think sometimes, I think most of the time it's the same jury, but who knows? I don't want to say anything too far off.
In some states, the sentencing is solely up to the judge.
Yeah, so, that's true. But here's what I want. I want time, like, you could find out that the government planted evidence. There's been Innocence Project documentaries where they found that people planted evidence, There's different documentaries on Netflix where
we still don't know what's going on with Making a Murderer.
I've never watched that. I don't know what. Yeah, still never watched it. There's still stuff where people in the government, investigators, have actually had to go to prison for a couple of years because they found that they planted evidence in places. So I don't even trust the DNA evidence. And I could do life in prison with that, I guess, because you could find out eventually that the person planted evidence. You know
how we could have a death penalty?
How's that?
If the prosecutors and the jury and the judge get it wrong and they kill an innocent person and it's later proven that they do, then they get the death penalty. So you'd have you can only do it if you're 100% sure.
Then that's like an eye for a lot of eyes.
I mean,
a bunch of them. But
you'd have to be willing to take that risk.
It does lay out a pretty good incentive structure.
I mean, I think that's the best.
I'm not entirely against it.
I am so confident that you are the one who killed all these kids in this school that I'm willing to risk my own life on being wrong. I think that's the only fair way to do it.
And there is a problem when you have a video of something that this guy, Cruz, was the person who killed a bunch of people at Stoneman Douglas High School.
Which is terrible.
We know that.
It's, an awful tragedy.
Does the guy deserve to die? Yes, and I hope he burns in hell. All right, but still, you can't do it for him because then you open the door up to all sorts of other malarkey out there, which they already do it in Florida and a lot of other states. We know that. But I guess we're just arguing against the death penalty. They still have the death penalty in Florida. He's not arguing to reinstate the death penalty. He just wants to make it easier.
I just think someone has to take the other side of the bet. I'm serious.
It's a good idea. I like it.
Then I think you would truly only basically get those that are 128,000% confident.
Mm-hmm.
I think in this case, there would be people willing to put their life on the line to say, yeah, I really think that this guy did it.
It'd be tough to figure out, to make sure, if you found out someone was innocent, it'd be tough to incentivize anyone to work towards proving whether or not someone was actually innocent or guilty, because there'd be a lot of people riding on that decision, making sure that doesn't actually happen.
Yeah. Hey, it's an idea.
No, I mean, it lays out the proper, some of the proper incentive structures for sure. Okay.
Honestly, we should just go back to old-fashioned dueling.
That's not right.
USC, that's the
University of Southern California.
That's a lot of California today in Dumb Bleep.
I guess so.
Yeah. The University of Southern California, USC, will no longer use the word field over racist connotations. The University of Southern California School of Social Work will no longer use the word field in its curriculum, saying it may have racist connotations. USC's Suzanne Dwork-Peck.
Charlie, have you heard this before right now?
I have not.
I can tell how surprised you are.
Social work said the change was critical to support anti-racist social work and inclusivity. The department specifically decided to remove the word field from its curriculum and replace it with practicum, according to the letter, which was dated Jan 9 and shared to Twitter. Quote, This change supports racist social work practice by replacing language that would be considered anti-black or anti-immigrant in favor of inclusive language. Language can be powerful in phrases such as going into the field or field work. Maybe have connotations for descendants of slavery and immigrant workers that are not benign. So,
oh man,
especially when the slaves take the field this weekend for the playoffs,
and it's all come full circle.
Yeah, that makes sense now. They're bought and sold and traded by these owners, and they play on a field.
As I said,
where they sometimes die and have to be resuscitated.
I'm going to hold true on my idea that if the government wants to take over something, let them fully take over the universities, because they basically already have. And if they could go ahead and finish running those things into the ground, I think that would be great. I really do.
It's like so much virtue signaling. It's like, look at what we're doing.
But it's so stupid.
I know.
It's not even... no one cares about this.
It doesn't change anything.
Normally a virtue signal needs to be something that someone cares about.
No, it's a way for them to say, look at what we're doing.
We're even better than you.
Yeah. Because silence is violence.
True.
So now they're doing so. They're removing words.
Now what about so the word field has to be associated with slavery. Nothing else.
Yeah.
Like farming, just in general, the way that people have stayed alive forever. There's no other thing that it could possibly be associated with. It's slavery. That's it.
Yeah, when your dad's in the field, yeah, that's what it is.
It's just like slavery.
USC says they are joining other universities across the nation and making changes to their institution to, quote, honor and acknowledge inclusion and reject white supremacy, anti-immigrant, and anti-blackness ideologies. We are committing to further align our actions, behaviors, and practices with anti-racism and anti-oppression, which requires taking a close and critical look at our profession, our history, our biases, and our complicity in the past and current injustices. I think they should get rid of the college.
They should. You know why?
The institution itself is racist, and requiring anyone to have a degree in anything is inherently racist because it was only white people that used to be able to go to college. So we should just get rid of. Plus, they have a football field on their campus.
Now,
there's USC track and field.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, they got to get rid of that. It's track and practicum. Yeah. Guys, when you see the players take the practicum, you'll know.
Yeah.
This is now. What about the campus?
It's not field hockey; it's practicum hockey.
What about campus, though, Charlie?
What does campus mean in Latin? All right, more meanings for campus is plain or field. Field. The F word.
Cool. Just making sure.
Yeah.
They got to get rid of that too. Luckily, no one at the university is getting enough education to think all the way through that one, I guess.
Not on campus, they're not.
We don't say the word field on this campus.
Oh, God.
Shrinkflation was bad enough. Now skimpflation? I'm Holland Cook with Inflation Hacks. As the cereal box got thinner, Merriam-Webster Dictionary added the word shrinkflation. But at least you can see it by looking at unit price. Now an invisible ripoff. Skimpflation. When Smart Balance spread reduced the share of vegetable oil by 40%, one customer complained that it spits all over when frying an egg and doesn't melt on toast. Maker Conagra quickly, quote, heard the feedback and decided to return to previous recipes. So it pays to squawk if, for instance, that 1,000-sheet roll of Scott toilet paper feels thinner. One shopper who weighed it and found it 20% lighter posted that quality has gone down the toilet. How are you coping? Post your inflation hacks at andyoucanquoteme.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. Hamas says its deputy leader and 2 commanders have been killed in an explosion in Beirut. In total, 7 people were killed in the Lebanese capital. Hamas called the killings cowardly and accused Israel of violating Lebanon's sovereignty and of spreading the conflict to the wider region. Embattled Harvard president Claudine Gay has resigned following allegations of plagiarism and questions over her ability to respond to anti-Semitism on campus. Her tenure of just over 6 months was the shortest presidency in the university's history. In early December, she appeared before a congressional hearing and struggled to answer questions about whether calls for the genocide of Jews would be in violation of Harvard's rules. Nearly 400 passengers have escaped a burning plane in Tokyo after a Japan Airlines flight collided with a Coast Guard aircraft on the runway of Haneda Airport. 5 people on board the smaller Coast Guard plane died in the incident. They were part of the aid effort underway following an earthquake in Japan which has killed at least 55 people. Japan's Prime Minister says it's a battle against time to rescue people still trapped by the New Year's Day quake. FSN's Chris Gilbert reports from Tokyo.
In an address the morning after the magnitude 7.6 quake struck, Prime Minister Fumio Kishida said 1,000 self-defense troops have been deployed to affected areas. But rescue efforts are being hampered by widespread damage to roads. Officials are still assessing the scale of the destruction. Japan's strongest earthquake since 2011 has caused fires and landslides and collapsed dozens of buildings. The country's meteorological agency has lifted all tsunami advisories, but says tidal waves could still turn. It's also warning that strong earthquakes could still occur, particularly over the next 2 to 3 days. Many people are still taking shelter in evacuation centres. Chris Gilbert in Tokyo.
Jury selection has got underway in New York in the trial against Wayne LaPierre and 3 other members of the National Rifle Association. The NRA's longtime leader is accused of corruption and diverting the group's money to pay for lavish expenses. FSN's William Denslow reports from New York.
Last week, an appeals court rejected the National Rifle Association's efforts to have the lawsuit tossed. Now, the suit filed by New York's Attorney General Letitia James back in 2020 is set to begin on January 8th. After jury selection concludes. James is seeking to remove Wayne LaPierre as the NRA's chief executive and slap a range of financial penalties on the powerful gun rights group. LaPierre and several other NRA members are accused of decades of corruption and spending millions of dollars of the organisation's funds on things like luxury travel. LaPierre says these were legitimate business expenses, and the NRA argues the case is politically motivated. William Denslow, New York.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
What is up, all of our liberty-loving friends? This is a special episode of Dumb Bleep of the Year. This is one of our recap episodes for the voting for Dumb Bleep of the Year. So we're going to be covering each month, and then the winners of each month will go into a quarterly semifinal, and then we'll bring that into the Final Four. And of course, the live group, the Fed Haters Club, will be voting on what's going to win Dumb Bleep of the Year. The winner will get a trophy that says that they won Dumb Bleep of the Year, and the person who submitted that specific Dumb Bleep in the live group, or it could be on Twitter, or it could just be me, will get a trophy to put on their mantle at home. So let's get in to Dumb Bleep of the Year.
All right, this is from the New York Post. Death of shot Clinton aide with Epstein ties found tied to a tree, ruled suicide despite no gun at the scene.
That's awesome.
The mysterious death of an aide to President Bill Clinton with ties to Jeffrey Epstein has been officially ruled a suicide despite there being no sign of a weapon near the body. Mark Middleton, 59, who served in the Clinton White House in the 1990s, was found dead on Heifer Ranch in Perryville, Arkansas, on May 2nd in 2022. Almost 1 year after Middleton's death, a police report obtained by the outlet this week revealed that the Little Rock businessman was discovered with a gunshot wound to the chest and an extension cord tying his neck to a tree.
That's not funny for the guy.
No.
Okay. But they ruled this a suicide.
Could you? Well, I know what happened. This guy was so depressed. He shot himself in the chest. And when he didn't die after like 15 minutes, he's like, well, that didn't do it. Let me get this electrical cord and tie myself to a tree.
He went to a completely different location because they couldn't find a gun anywhere around there. Left the gun, or he took it and he threw it in a lake or something like that. And then, hung himself with an extension cord.
Notably, Lawson's account, the deputy Lawson from the Perry County Sheriff's Department, his account includes that while officers located a gun case and 3 boxes of buckshot in Middleton's BMW SUV, there was no weapon in sight. Though the father of 2 worked for his family's HVAC business in the years before his death, he previously enjoyed a high-flying lifestyle as special advisor to Clinton and assistant to his chief of staff. Middleton notably signed late pedophile Epstein into the White House 7 of the 17 times he visited the residence. He also reported to have flown on Epstein's infamous Lolita Express jet. What a tragic.
Matt's got a good idea. He tied the gun to a bunch of balloons, and they took it down, and then the balloon got shot down by a missile. Now that makes sense. Okay, there you go. Some raccoons helped him up there. Maybe raccoons grabbed the gun and ran off with it. I'm telling you, man, those things are bandits.
I might be the first to say it here. Middleton didn't kill himself.
Yeah, probably very first to say that.
How many people have died that have been tied to the Clintons?
It's too many, dude. Did you ever watch House of Cards?
It's kind of crazy.
Did you watch House of Cards?
I got through, I think, some of season 2, like first and second season.
It's good. Yeah. It's definitely written about the Clintons. But
I hated.
It's like the basis. It's not about the Clintons, but it's about the Clintons.
It's about the Clintons. You don't want to say that.
No. And we're not saying that either, by the way. And by the way, neither one of us are suicidal. Not any more than usual.
How many people close to the Clintons have to die of suicide before something happens?
Should ask ChatGPT.
How crazy is this? I mean, how many people has it been now? At least 5 or 6.
Yeah.
It can't be a coincidence at this point.
You know, what's funny is I knew that we would get to this, and I thought about researching this earlier, and I forgot to do it. I was like, I bet it's going to get to how many people have died that were close to the Clintons. Did you hear there's a war? There's a war going on.
I think so, yeah.
Did you hear about that stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, we accidentally skipped ahead. There's a few parts to this, okay? First off, we'll go from Ed Krasenstein. Do you want to read this one, Chuck, or you want me to do it?
Sure.
Okay, go ahead.
So, Trump hid in an underground bunker while Americans protested in the streets. President Biden flew into the middle of a war in Kyiv, Ukraine on President's Day and walked the streets as air raid sirens blared. If you can call that walking.
We'll talk about the air raid sirens.
One man stands for world freedom and peace, while the other stood only for his narcissistic self. No, I mean, I think Trump is a narcissist. That's for sure.
Sure.
So is Biden.
Yeah.
Yeah. 2 narcissists going at each other there.
So statistically, there's a very high statistical chance that if you get to that point, you are a narcissist or a psychopath or something like that. Like it's not easy for good people to make it to that point. Most of the time, the good people end up suiciding themselves on the way there, like that Clinton aide, Not saying he was a good person. Okay, let's talk about the air raid thing. When he was there on President's Day, he walks out and there are air raid sirens going off, Charlie. And that's just how brave the president is. That even as Ukraine was sounding its air raid sirens, meaning they thought there was an imminent bombing attack from Russia. Missile attack from Russia. He just walked out there like nothing was going on. He didn't care. He's got his aviators on. Who cares?
Like he was walking on water almost.
To be honest, he probably had no clue what was going on. He was walking to a little dot he was supposed to go stand at. That was about it. But here's what that sounded.
Probably couldn't even hear the sirens.
Here's what that sounded like. So brave. It's Braveheart, man. Got a freaking William Wallace over here. Jeez. Oh, so good. Now, the thing is, CNN accidentally mentioned the fact that, like, right when we've been here. We've been here for a while and haven't heard air raid sirens.
5 days, I have not heard any explosions. I have not heard any air sirens until about half an hour ago, right when President Biden was in the center of Kyiv, as Clarissa was just.
So you're saying it was planned?
If they weren't planned, everyone in the Secret Service and everyone needs fired like immediately. Yeah. You don't just have the president of the U.S. walking around while you think someone's about to bomb you. It's not a thing that happens. It's clearly planned. They let Russia know in advance that he was going. It was fake.
It's all fake.
It's fake.
It's all fake.
But it still works. Very brave.
You can't make this stuff up.
So I'm telling you, he's brave. NATO tweeted out, this is propaganda going hard right now. The Krasensteins, there's two of them, the Ed and Brett or something like that. God awful at everything, just terrible. They're twins. I'm pretty sure they've got to be getting paid by the White House. There's like a list of social media influencers that are paid, and we've talked about like that Brooklyn Dad guy. Mm-hmm. You know, he's paid to do this. NATO says Ukraine is hosting one of the great epics of this century. We are Harry Potter and William Wallace, the Na'vi and Han Solo. We're escaping from Shawshank and blowing up the Death Star. We are fighting with the Harkonnens and challenging Thanos. So
Putin has a big hammer, is what you're saying.
This is not a movie. This is supposed to be an actual war that's like actually violent, you know?
Mm-hmm. Because wars are.
Okay, Magoo says they have a point. This is all baloney.
Theatrics.
Yes. This is as fake as those things, isn't it? Mm. We were talking about this. Was it you and I talking about this earlier or me and someone else? But I think the U.S. and Russia are both cool with this. I think it's good for both of them. They get to both have their little Afghanistan. They can drum up support on both sides, you know, spend a bunch of money, wash a bunch of money here and there. Russia's economy is barely taking a hit from the whole thing. They're going to partner up with China. I think they are both totally fine with this. Honestly, I think Ukraine is too.
Like, hey, you're not going to use any nukes, are you? Yeah, we won't either.
Yeah.
We'll just keep this going.
We're going to go with more of this. Charlie from Drew Pavlo? Pavlo
dog?
I don't know.
Pavlo's dog.
Sure.
Zelensky and Biden are fighting the same war against racism and imperialism as Malcolm and Martin.
Malcolm X and Martin Luther King.
They look exactly the same too.
Basically the same thing. Now, anywhere else, this would be like kind of a racist thing to say, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Never mind the fact that like Ukraine is full of Nazis.
What are you talking about?
Yeah. I didn't know that this was coming.
So I brought this graphic here as a bunch of screenshots pre-start to the war, February, whenever was it last year when this happened? It was 2022, right?
Yeah.
February 2022. Listen.
So prior to that,
all the media knew that Ukraine had a big Nazi problem. A lot of Nazi problems out there. I mean, from all the big papers and publications. You see anything that stands out? What's worth?
Maybe the Nazi flag. With the Ukraine flag and an American flag. That stands out.
Far-right extremists in Ukrainian military bragged about Canadian training. Let's see, from BBC, Ukraine underplays role of far-right in conflict.
Here's FBI, neo-Nazi militia trained by U.S. military in Ukraine, now training U.S. white supremacists.
Great.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Hundreds march in Ukraine, an annual tribute to Nazi collaborator. Violent anti-Semitism is gripping Ukraine, and the government is standing idly by. You get the thing, okay? And they're also comparing this to a fight against racism and imperialism.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty crazy. And then on top of that, we'll throw in one more. This is all Ukraine Russia propaganda, and we got to get scooting. I know it's my fault. Okay. This guy deleted this tweet, but you can go ahead.
All right. Jason J. Smart. Boycott New York Rangers Russian goalie Igor.
All named Igor? I'm sorry. Apologies to everyone out there listening that's named Igor.
It's like John in Russia.
Okay. I got you.
Igor and Igor.
Get you.
Yeah. Shesterkin has a giant Russian army Z on his face mask. I have read the explanation that it is sideways. It's a sideways N, but let's be honest, it's a Z, which shows support for the Russian war effort. Disgusting.
It's literally a sideways N. The top of his helmet says NYR on the top of his helmet, but it's sideways, so it looks like a Z. This guy's serious about this. I went through his Twitter
Z
page.
for Zelensky.
It's Z. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's Russian, but he supports Ukraine.
Z for Zelensky.
Yeah.
I got you. Okay. Well, that tweet is gone, but thanks to, I believe, Costco for sending over the screenshot of that. It was worth it. Aaron Reed says, we told you this would happen. They're going after Obergefell, gay marriage, and gay parents in Oklahoma. You didn't think this would stop at trans people, did you? There's a little picture of a baby foot, committed some kind of baby foot crime.
It's a slippery slope.
Getting foot printed. An Oklahoma judge just transferred. Here's the headline. Now, we're going to need like a flow chart to go over this one, okay? I'm going to warn you. An Oklahoma judge just transferred a lesbian mom's parental rights to her son's sperm donor. What? I know what you're thinking.
This is overturning.
What?
This is overturning a Obergefell.
Just
sure.
Transferred a lesbian mom's parental rights to her son's sperm donor.
No, read that again. I still didn't get it.
Well, I might give you a little bit more explanation, but we're not going to. Okay, by the way, this place, 19th News, probably 19th Amendment, betting, your trusted source for contextualizing the news. That's what they are.
So they can't get fact checks for context.
Chris Williams is a lesbian. It's Chris with a K. Williams is a lesbian. And that means she won't be seeing her son anytime soon.
Because she's a lesbian?
Apparently. That is the official ruling. He said, lesbian. I'm sorry, the judge was a woman. On Monday, Oklahoma County District Judge Lynn McGuire ruled that Williams had failed to adopt her son and had forfeited her parenting rights to his sperm donor, the son, which I don't know how inconsiderate these people can be, but I don't know if their son is officially declared being a male.
His, yeah.
Yeah, that seems wrong. Okay, don't worry, we're going to clear this all up. So Williams, the lesbian, losing the rights to her son. Advocates say Williams'
From an
case...
Oklahoma female judge.
Yeah. Advocates say Williams' case may test the bounds of equal marriage laws in Oklahoma and beyond. According to Williams, that's the lesbian, she and her ex-partner, Rebecca Wilson... Now, Williams is the lesbian mom who's losing the rights to her son.
The other mom.
Her ex-partner, Wilson, planned to have their son and found a sperm donor, whose last name is Vaughn, on a paternity website together. The two married, Wilson and Williams, girls, both of them, married together while Wilson was pregnant. Okay.
Wilson's not the mom in this story. She's the partner.
No, Wilson is actually the birth mother.
And the partner to the mom, Williams.
Is Williams.
Yes.
Who has no biological relationship to the kid. Okay? I'm not saying that that's the only thing that matters or anything. Sperm donor is the biological father. Apparently didn't sign one of those things saying that you wouldn't have any rights to the kid. In most states, married couples are presumed parents of children born within those unions. I got questions about that. Williams said she and Wilson raised the child. for 2 years, but the couple split bitterly in 2021, and Wilson moved in with Vaughn. Bitterly. Remember that. So Wilson, the birth mother, moved in with Vaughn, the birth father,
the sperm donor,
and took the child with her. She argued that Williams is not the child's mom.
It sounds like Williams is not the child's mom.
I don't even think Maury has to tell us. You know?
Yeah.
It's her, you know? Do we only have to do a test? Do we? Now,
they should still go on Maury, though.
Well, they should.
That would be a great episode.
Williams says, I don't feel like we should have to adopt our own children. Now, Williams is the person who married a woman who was pregnant and then divorced the woman who had the baby and left to go be with the biological father.
Mm-hmm.
She says, I don't feel we should have to adopt our own children. If I was a man...
I love how she started it by saying, I don't feel like...
Yeah. I can't dispute that now, can I? It is correct that you don't feel like this.
Yeah.
If I was a man, nobody would come back and, question whether that child was mine or not. You mean like if you were the man, like with the stuff that went in the thing,
the other stuff,
created the stuff, and the thing came out with the stuff. Is that this is so dumb? Oh,
I thought she was the lesbian mom, though.
Way down in the article, very end of it. The birth mother has alleged that Williams was abusive towards her and that she's removing Williams from her son's life for her son's safety. During the divorce proceedings, Wilson was granted an emergency victim protective order that barred Williams, the victim lesbian mother in this case, barred Williams from contact with her and the child. That order was extended. Williams denies the abuse and says it's irrelevant to the question of parental rights. Let's move on.
They're coming for it all.
This is still number 7.
That's the biggest thing. The biggest thing is
that means they're coming for gay marriage itself.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard that, but that's what that explanation
They're
was.
overturning it all. Yes. And this is coming from a news source that is known for their unbiased contextualizing reporting.
They contextualize things like no other. Transferred lesbian mom's parental rights to her son's sperm. Okay. We're gonna stay with the family here for a second. For number 7, real quick though.
That was like the hardest, dumbest thing we've ever had to go through.
Let's talk about this Disney Plus cartoon, which is that's weird how that flowed together, demanding reparations.
Dumb Bleep number 8.
How about that? That's pretty cool. I wanted to see if this is popular. Costco posted a screenshot. I got a more updated one. 10% average audience score for Proud Family, the Proud Family, 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's how you know something is just going to be God freaking awful. 100% from Rotten Tomatoes.
Do we get to watch this? Is this something we get to watch?
10%.
Great.
Let's look at this clip from Proud Family. This is a Disney Plus cartoon. This is a cartoon for children. Okay.
This country was built on slavery, which means slaves built this country. Tilled this land from sea to sea to sea. First there was rice, tobacco, sugar cane. Then Whitney did his thing and cotton became king. And we were its soldiers, 4 million strong, fighting for America's freedoms, even though we remained America's slaves. Built this country. The descendants of slaves continue to build it. Slaves built this country. And we, the descendants of slaves in America, have earned reparations for their suffering. And continue to earn reparations every moment we spend submerged in the systemic prejudice, racism, and white supremacy that America was founded with and still has not atoned for. Slaves built this country. Not only field hands, but carpenters, masons, blacksmiths, musicians, inventors built cities from Jamestown to New Orleans to Banneker, Washington. 40 acres and a mule. We'll take the 40 acres, keep the mule. We made your families rich. From the southern plantation heirs to the northern bankers to the New England ship owners, the founding fathers, former presidents, current senators,
The Illuminati, the New World Order.
Slaves built this country. We had Tubman, Turner,
Frederick D.
Then they say Lincoln freed the slaves.
But slaves were men.
And women. And only we can free ourselves. Emancipation is not freedom. Jim Crow, segregation, redlining, public schools feeding private prisons where we become slaves again. As we celebrate Juneteenth for the...
I can't anymore.
Can't finish it.
I can't anymore after that.
Oh. Yeah, this is something. This is something.
That's number 8.
And again, I will always say this. I think the history of slavery is atrocious.
That is a very brave thing of you to say, Charlie.
I do. And I can't believe now this coming from a company, by the way, whose founder, Walt Disney, actually created racist cartoons when it first started.
Never.
So now, I guess they're atoning for their sins. It's like, how could you be employed by Disney to create this cartoon and do the voiceover work and everything and not realize that the company you're working for was founded by a racist?
This is actually, I mean, this is a lot of people who want to get rid of their Tesla, their racist Tesla, so they can buy a Volkswagen.
Did they? Did they have to put warnings on like the old Mickey Mouse cartoons? Because
they've had to put warnings on a bunch of stuff.
They wouldn't take them down.
Yeah,
but they had to put warnings on them.
They put it on a bunch of old stuff.
It's
not even that. Okay, they're hypocritical from stuff from 70 years, 60 years ago they made. It's still just a stupid idea, and it shouldn't be something. I mean, I guess if you want your kids to watch that, that's fine. That's totally fine. But that is a terrible thing to drill in the kids' heads. And all the stuff, I mean, I want to know. I want to go outside and go, I get the idea. Slaves built this country. I get it. It was just beat into our heads. All right. But I don't think it's entirely accurate. When you look at the economics of the North and the South was actually in pretty tough condition. The more I wouldn't say slave-free. Still slaves around there. We know that. They were in better financial condition. And also, where did okay, they built this thing. Where is it? Can I go see it? It's gone. It fell apart. Okay? It rotted. It's gone.
Yeah.
So I don't give 2 shits about it. All right? Sorry. I don't. All right, next thing.
It is disgusting that we're doing this to kids.
Some of you have wanted to support Free Talk Live's mission on a monthly basis, but don't want to support Patreon. Now we have an alternative that also helps our premier streaming platform, Odyssey. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click Join at the top of the channel. You can subscribe for $5 per month, and unlike other subscription services, Odyssey adds their processing fee on top, so it'll cost a little over $5 per month, but Free Talk Live will receive the entire amount you pledged. Higher donation tiers are available if you're feeling so inspired. You'll get a special membership badge that's visible in the Odyssey chat room, and if we get enough supporters, we may enable members-only chat. This new subscription method is a great way to decentralize our direct listener support away from just Patreon and also support a libertarian-run business, Odyssey. Please visit video.freetalklive.com and click Join to subscribe to our Odyssey channel and help support spreading our message around the planet. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click Join today.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
The latest episode of Free Talk Live continues with Hour 2 up next after the news here at listen.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. Hamas says its deputy leader and 2 commanders have been killed in an explosion in Beirut. In total, 7 people were killed in the Lebanese capital. Hamas called the killings cowardly and accused Israel of violating Lebanon's sovereignty and of spreading the conflict to the wider region. Embattled Harvard president Claudine Gay has resigned following allegations of plagiarism and questions over her ability to respond to anti-Semitism on campus. Her tenure of just over 6 months was the shortest presidency in the university's history. In early December, she appeared before a congressional hearing and struggled to answer questions about whether calls for the genocide of Jews would be in violation of Harvard's rules. Nearly 400 passengers have escaped a burning plane in Tokyo after a Japan Airlines flight collided with a Coast Guard aircraft on the runway of Haneda Airport. 5 people on board the smaller Coast Guard plane died in the incident. They were part of the aid effort underway following an earthquake in Japan which has killed at least 55 people. Japan's Prime Minister says it's a battle against time to rescue people still trapped by the New Year's Day quake. FSN's Chris Gilbert reports from Tokyo.
In an address the morning after the magnitude 7.6 quake struck, Prime Minister Fumio Kishida said 1,000 self-defense troops have been deployed to affected areas. But rescue efforts are being hampered by widespread damage to roads. Officials are still assessing the scale of the destruction. Japan's strongest earthquake since 2011 has caused fires and landslides and collapsed dozens of buildings. The country's meteorological agency has lifted all tsunami advisories, but says tidal waves could still turn. It's also warning that strong earthquakes could still occur, particularly over the next 2 to 3 days. Many people are still taking shelter in evacuation centers. Chris Gilbert in Tokyo.
Jury selection has got underway in New York in the trial against Wayne LaPierre and 3 other members of the National Rifle Association. The NRA's longtime leader is accused of corruption and diverting the group's money to pay for lavish expenses. FSN's William Denslow reports from New York.
Last week, an appeals court rejected the National Rifle Association's efforts to have the lawsuit tossed. Now, the suit filed by New York's Attorney General Letitia James back in 2020 is set to begin on January 8th. After jury selection concludes. James is seeking to remove Wayne LaPierre as the NRA's chief executive and slap a range of financial penalties on the powerful gun rights group. LaPierre and several other NRA members are accused of decades of corruption and spending millions of dollars of the organisation's funds on things like luxury travel. LaPierre says these were legitimate business expenses, and the NRA argues the case is politically motivated. William Denslow, New York.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking today at the shock decision by Denmark's Queen to announce her abdication in her New Year's speech. It took the country entirely by surprise. Queen Margrethe has been on the Danish throne for 52 years, and following the death of Britain's Queen Elizabeth II, she became at the age of 83 the continent's longest-serving monarch. Like most Danes, Lona Tiles, a journalist and author based in Copenhagen, learnt the news in real time as it broke on television.
It was a huge surprise. I mean, there's a very sort of firm tradition that most people in Denmark will be sort of seated in front of television 6 o'clock to hear her sort of yearly speech, and sort of gradually it dawned upon people this is going to be the last time she's ever giving this speech, and she was kind of easing us a little bit into it, saying I have so many people to thank over the years, and people were like, whoa, why is she saying that? And this shock came. She's been there for most of my life as well. I don't remember any other monarch. I think one of the main private reactions I've heard from people is like, what are we going to do without her?
The abdication means that her son, Crown Prince Frederik, will assume the throne in Queen Margrethe's wake. He is 55, but there will be no glittering coronation for him. In Denmark, there's no ceremony to these things. His accession will simply be announced to the public on the day that it occurs. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And the main news again, Hamas says its deputy leader and 2 commanders have been killed in an explosion in Beirut. Embattled Harvard president Claudine Gay has resigned following allegations of plagiarism and questions over her ability to respond to anti-Semitism on campus. And nearly 400 passengers have escaped a burning plane in Tokyo after a Japan Airlines flight collided with a Coast Guard aircraft on the runway of Haneda Airport. There's more from us on X at Feature Story. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
Congressman Hanford, you're married, 2 beautiful children, and yet you texted nude photographs to a 23-year-old staffer. Why did you do it?
I wanted her to see my penis. I was hoping the penis photo would arouse her sexually, that she might think, that's a nice penis. I will respond with an offer to have sex with the penis, or maybe send a photo of my breasts. I would like that. And that's what I was hoping would happen.
Here's what intrigues so many people. Why would a promising, successful politician take such a big risk?
I knew I could let down my family, destroy my marriage, and damage the country that I love, but on the other hand, if there's even the small chance of getting off at any time, you gotta take it.
The big question. Do you plan to resign?
No, I'm very good at my job. Plus, it's a lot harder to get women to have sex with you when you're not a congressman.
This is the Onion News Network.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. What's up, all of our liberty-loving friends? This is another fantastic episode of Liberty at Night with Nate and Charlie on the Free Talk Live network, coming at you from Nashville, Tennessee. In this hour, Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. Rising fees made Bitcoin useless for purchases, but Dash continues to have fees less than 1 cent per transaction and has implemented really cool features to ensure it's undefeated as the most useful cryptocurrency in the marketplace. From a technical standpoint, Dash transactions are irreversible and its network is protected from 51% attacks by their chain locks technology. There's no need to wait for a confirmation before considering the Dash transaction complete, so it's great for merchants. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and use Dash. Start by learning more at dash.org. And a big thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit dash.org to learn about Dash, dash.org. This is a special episode of Dumb Bleep of the Year. This is one of our recap episodes for the voting for Dumb Bleep of the Year. So we're going to be covering each month, and then the winners of each month will go into a quarterly semifinal, and then we'll bring that into the final 4. And of course, the live group, the Fed Haters Club, will be voting on what's going to win Dumb Bleep of the Year. The winner will get a trophy that says that they won Dumb Bleep of the Year, and the person who submitted that specific Dumb Bleep in the live group, or it could be on Twitter, or it could just be me, will get a trophy to put on their mantle at home. So let's get in to Dumb Bleep of the Year. Dumb Bleep number 2 is a group called It's the Guns. So we have the shooting we've been talking about all week here in Nashville, right here close to home. Number 2 is going to be people blaming the guns. We'll have some videos, we'll have some tweets. Let's show what we got. Here's the first one posted, saying from Sawyer Hackett, I don't know who that is. Here's Tennessee Governor Bill Lee 3 years ago next week announcing permitless open carry of firearms. And then they post some misinformation, just incorrect information, probably right after it happened. At least 5 children and 3 adults were shot in his state today. Somehow, I don't even have to play the video. That's just him announcing that they're going to have permitless open carry. In what way is this tied to this shooting? Can someone tell me?
Yeah, I mean, it's his fault.
It is, because if the shooter would not have been able to open carry those weapons from her car to the doors that she shot through, this never would have happened.
No, she would have never tried it.
No.
Yeah.
That kind of reaching for stupid things to say is why this makes it into Dumb Bleep. Next thing, we're going to play a few clips from The View.
Oh, yes.
First thing, Whoopsie Goldberg is wearing a shirt that says thoughts and prayers. And it's crossed out. And at the bottom, it says policy and change. So no thoughts and prayers, not a thing. Policy and change. We are the Almighty. We can fix all of these things. So that goes to part of it. Let's play a few clips.
I would be willing to say, why don't we put in place trainings, background checks, mental health screenings to be able to have one?
Why are we compromised? Why are we? You know what I'm tired of. I don't mean to be rude to cut you off. I'm tired of trying to find a way to justify you being able to keep 75 guns in your house. I am tired of trying to figure out a way to say, listen. We have rules and regulations. The Constitution is very clear. Scalia changed the meaning of what the Constitution says.
Well,
Scalia changed it.
Okay, there's one.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Scalia changed it?
He wrote it in. When a judge does something you don't like, that means that judge changed the meaning of what the Constitution says because you know exactly what the Constitution says and means based on your stupid emotions.
That's so
that
weird.
You have.
Yeah.
Here's Joy Behar.
Also, I love when she's like, I don't mean to be rude and interrupt.
but I'm going to be rude and interrupt.
But I'm going to go ahead and do it. Yeah.
She said with all due respect.
Yeah.
By the way, thank you, Joe Biden, for trying to put the ban on those assault weapons, which I should also point out that after a mass shooting in Australia in 1996, they enacted a mandatory gun buyback and collected 700,000 privately owned guns. Since then, there has been just one mass shooting, which was 4 people, and gun homicides have decreased by 60%. It can be done. It can be done. I wish they would stop jumping around and dancing around everything but the guns. It's the guns.
It's the guns.
It is the guns. The thing that I found really annoying about this, and I still have to get some more data from Australia, but here's an important thing to note. Earlier in this clip, or not in this clip, but in the previous clip, they used the 130 mass shootings statistic. I think 132 is the number that we saw the other day. And then they talk about Australia and how they've only had one mass shooting. Now, oddly enough, the one mass shooting in Australia that number comes from them counting mass shootings as 4 more people killed indiscriminately in a public setting by someone that they didn't know, not domestic dispute, not criminal activity, not gang violence. It's the Violence Project number.
The true stat, I would say.
The stat. And so that is true that of those, Australia has had one of them. But earlier they said the U.S. had 132 using a completely different metric for measuring mass shootings. And if you use the same Australia metric, well, then they would have said 3. Now that's for this year. They would have said 3 for the United States instead of 132. They're literally using different metrics between the two. I also read some interesting articles from Newsweek and a bunch of other places saying Australia actually has more guns now than they used to. They're just legal guns. They did the forced buyback. But if you look at the gun imports in Australia, it's actually way more than it was before that. And they still have mass shootings. It's just a lot of the criminal activity and stuff, which is what's included in the U.S.'s 132 number.
He said a lot of folks are against gun regulations because they won't work. I'm against them because they will. Look at Australia. Their gun laws worked. They took away the guns, and then they were able, during COVID, to lock you in your homes or take you to prison, essentially, if you didn't comply with government law. That was wrong, by the way. Government regulation that ended up being wrong. Look what happens throughout history when they do actually take the guns away. It's like, okay, maybe we saved, let's say, 1,000 kids, which 1,000 kids, I don't want any kids to be murdered or harmed in any way. I have a kid of my own. But then how many millions of people died after that?
Yeah.
You know?
How many? Just like deciding you're going to stop people from dying from COVID, but not pay attention to all of the other societal factors that could end up leading to people dying when you do that, like unemployment and deaths of despair, things like that.
Yeah.
One more clip here from The View, and then I promise.
Not to mention that, Australia has the population of New York City.
It's 30 million, I think, in Australia. So more like California is the number. All right.
There are certain guns you have. I don't have a tank.
Right.
I can't go and buy a tank.
Right.
I can't buy a
flamethrower. Can you buy that? Can you buy
I can't buy any of those. None of the AR-15s have no use in normal daily life.
None.
No, none. And again, I don't say give up all your guns. I don't know why you have to have 50, 11 of them, but maybe you do. But I want to know that you've got them because I want to be sure that I'm aware of what's going on in my periphery. And if you're not willing to do that, then we all have a problem. Telling people to put arms.
Okay. That's enough. Few things there. The tank, you can get tanks, right? I mean, is that okay? Flamethrower, you can buy flamethrowers. I don't know who needs to know this. Apparently, Joe Biden needs to know this also because he just said this yesterday, the day before, or whenever it was, that you couldn't buy a flamethrower. Those are illegal, I believe, in California. And I'm going to name another state. I think maybe it's Maryland.
You can definitely buy not a flamethrower.
You can buy those. You can also buy flamethrowers. I've even seen fact checks. And in fact, I posted them out. I just posted one on Twitter earlier. That was incorrect. You can buy those things. You can get machine guns, whatever people want to. All guns are machines, if you ask me, but I guess they mean automatic weapons. So, of course, you have to go through approval for that kind of thing. And then she says, if you're going to have that many guns, like, I want to know that you have those. You know who else wants to know? The government that wants to take away all of your rights. They want to know exactly who has all of those guns as well.
Yeah.
And in fact, they already do because you still got to go through background checks for all of these things in the first place. Okay. I know that there's not a national gun registry, I guess, or anything, but
like they don't have the data.
There's no data, apparently, on this thing. Okay. So those are the view. We're still inside of a Dumb Bleep number 2, Charlie, called It's the Guns. Here's one from whoever the heck this person is. Ukraine flag, American flag, rainbow flag.
He tweets, I hope it was Republicans that lost their lives. One good thing about gun violence is occasionally wipes out a full Republican families in one fell swoop. I would like to thank congressional Republicans and the NRA. Yeah.
That's great.
Deserved it.
That's great. Okay, that rounds out number 2, It's the Guns. This is Joseph R. Biden, the president, talking to Kal Penn, who is most famous for being in the Harold and Kumar movies. And the president tells a story about his epiphany on when he knew that he was in favor of gay marriage.
I'm curious what your evolution was like on marriage equality and what the federal government might be able to do to protect LGBTQ Americans, especially trans kids who are dealing with all these regressive state laws that are popping up right now.
I can remember exactly where my epiphany was.
Okay.
Hadn't thought much about it, to tell you the truth. And I was a senior in high school, and my dad was dropping me off. And I remember about to get out of the car, and I looked to my right, and 2 well-dressed men in suits kissed each other. I mean, they gave each other a kiss. And I'll never forget, I turned and looked at my dad. He said, Joey, it's simple. They love each other. It's simple. No, I'm not joking. It's simple. They love each other. And it's never been, it's never been.
He's having a lot of trouble coming up with ways to corroborate the lie.
With the rest of the story.
Yeah. It's like, God, what did we talk about before this interview?
Now, when Kal Penn asked him, I want to know about your evolution on gay marriage, I think what he meant was, when you were the vice president, you were still against gay marriage. Can you talk to me about how this happened? And he's like, it was in 1961. That was when I knew that this was okay. And Kal Penn's like, what? Yeah. That's his what face? Surely that had to be going through his head. Kal Penn.
Because Obama was against gay marriage in 2008.
Kal Penn was there. He left the TV show House to work in the Obama administration, which was officially against gay marriage. And Biden's sitting here telling him, who was there, that he had always been in favor of it.
It's simple.
You can just...
Simple.
It's crazy how you can revise history
Try to avoid nuance, Senator.
Let me
Do
be
you support
straightforward.
gay marriage?
No, Barack Obama nor I support redefining from a civil side what constitutes marriage. We do not support that. That is basically a decision to be able to be left to the faith and people who practice their faith determination what you call it. The bottom line, though, is
I can't believe the American people can't see through this. We already have a law, the Defense of Marriage Act. We've all voted, not where I voted and others said, look, marriage is between a man and a woman, and states must respect that. Nobody's violated that law. There's been no challenge to that law. Why do we need a constitutional amendment? Marriage is between a man and a woman.
Awkward, right?
You would think.
I wanted to double check, though, the 1996 Defense of Marriage Act, which, just to make sure, Biden did, in fact, vote for that as well. But anyway, it was when he was in high school and he saw these two well-dressed men kissing.
It's simple.
So now you have to believe that Biden was in favor of gay marriage, knew that it was right, knew that it was two people who loved each other, and voted against it or in favor of outlawing it or whatever his whole political career so he could stay in power. And so therefore he's a person who, even though he knew it was wrong, he did whatever he needed to do to stay in power.
The truth of the answer is I became in favor when the polls shifted in 2012.
The willingness to just... The problem is he'll outright lie about this, and a lot of politicians do this. He'll outright lie to someone, first off, who was in the Obama administration. He's talking to a person.
He was like a communications director or something
like that.
Right?
I can't remember exactly what it was. I don't think he was there for long. He'll outright lie to that person and on TV, and they'll have a real conversation about a fake situation that didn't happen. And everyone is going to act like it's the truth, even though everyone knows it isn't the truth. This is one of my favorites. Reparations, going to be number 5. But more specifically, here is the Debt Collective replying. The Debt Collective is this group on Twitter that just talks about how you shouldn't have to pay debt. Essentially, all the debt is bad. We should cancel all of it. You shouldn't need to pay anything. And so Tim asked a question. You constantly post about forgiving debt. What are some things you feel people should have to pay their debts on? Okay, let's entertain that question. What you always think people should have their stuff canceled. What's something you think people should have to pay for? And they respond with reparations. They messed up. I'm sure this is just an oversight on their part. The Debt Collective. What should people have to pay their debt on? I know this is tough, but you should pick something that is a debt that people chose to go into. If you're going to say that they should pay a debt, you don't just choose something that no one has ever agreed to or has any responsibility for at all. All right. But that's what they did. It's not any of your medical debt. I get that probably wasn't by choice. We can't help that things happen sometimes. It's not even your car payment. You know, you can't help that you chose that car. You could have chosen a cheaper one. You know that. But you wanted that one. Let's be honest. And so it's more money and it's tougher to pay for. Yours college, of course. You had to get that, whatever the worthless degree was. It might even be a good degree, but you went too soon and you got a degree that you don't really care about anymore because you don't want to do that. That's why my degree is worthless. I could go to a semester of college, probably might need a couple. That's also called like a year of college. And I could go and I could be a teacher if I wanted to be. All right. Now, did I go get a worthless degree? No. You get hired as a teacher pretty easily. It's worthless to me because I don't want to be a teacher anymore because I hadn't fully decided what I wanted to do before I went to college, which is why I just left and I never went back. Therefore, I got a worthless college loan, a bunch of them. All right, still paying on them right now. It's not that. That's not what you should have to pay for. It should be reparations, something that you had nothing to do with because you never held any slaves. and money that you should pay to people who were never slaves. And who responds to this tweet? None other than Nina Turner, with not one or two, or three or four or five or even six, but 7 fire emojis on Twitter. That is how on fire this idea was, that there is nothing in this life that you should have to pay for that you received other than paying reparations to black people. That is the only thing that you owe as a human being, is money to her. That's it. You think we're done with reparations right now? No, because Nina Turner still existed another day this week. And so therefore we can still talk about her. And that's great. Many of you saw this one. Black folks are not demanding reparations from white folks. I read that. I was like, okay, good. Means I don't have to pay any BS reparations, right? The demand is for the United States government, whose economy was built on the labor of enslaved people, whose laws allow black codes, Jim Crow, and redlining, to repay that debt. Okay, so it's not black people demanding reparations from white people. It's just from the United States government. Were there terrible things? Of course. Slavery, yeah. Black codes, Jim Crow, of course. Really bad things. But where does the United States government get its money, Nina? And wouldn't you know it? She answered the question. Most of the time she doesn't answer this question. But the problem is, here's the deal. You're going to get the reparations from the government. Okay, well, the government's got to get its money from somewhere. It's either going to tax everyone, or it's going to borrow, or it's going to print. Those are the ways it's going to get money. This person says, who do you think funds the government, Nina? And she responds with, the government itself issues currency. So who funds the government? It's just going to issue the currency. Now, let's think about this for a minute. Why do we pay taxes in the first place? This is people's fallback. This is your MMT argument. Like, oh yeah, I know that we can't possibly pay for this. I know we can't. We're just going to print the money for it. All right, so why are we still taxing people? You know, let's just stop. Let's just print all the money, right? Let's just deal with it that way. That's a great idea. I love it. So the government itself issues currency. You know what happens when the government issues currency and gives it directly out to people, especially when it gives it back directly to people in the form of payments that they can then immediately use? Inflation. Inflation happens to people. And wouldn't you know it, who is it that gets most affected by inflation? But poor people first. Those are the people who get affected first. Now, I'm not saying that means that black people get affected first, but statistically that would be. But of course, they'll have the money to pay for the extra inflation. So that's fine, except for when that money runs out. And then everyone else will have to not get. Listen, this is a recipe for absolutely destroying what is left of our country. If you have reparation printed money, you literally print funny money for black people to use at grocery stores. And then it leads to increased prices for everyone, but only one group of people gets the extra money to use on things. It's done at that time. I'm going to start buying MREs to put in the basement that I don't have. Okay? I'll build a basement and I'll buy some MREs and I'm going to put them down there at that time. I kind of agree. Could we just do it and get it over with? I'm sick. You know, let's just get past that part so I can focus on how we rebuild afterwards. Right? Just became a collapsitarian right there.
This hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. Tired of the ever-inflating US dollar? You can live your life on Dash instead with some handy websites. BitRefill.com has been accepting Dash for years and has a ton of big-name retailers and brands, including grocers, gas stations, phone refills, Amazon, and even prepaid MasterCards. Plus, many of their gift cards are available at a discount. But what about paying your bills? Spritz.finance can do that, and they can send dollars to your bank account in case you still need those for some reason. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol, and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and use Dash. Start by learning more at Dash.org. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit Dash.org to learn about Dash. Dash.org.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. Hamas and Israel have confirmed that Hamas's deputy leader Salah al-Aruri has been killed in an Israeli drone strike in a suburb of the Lebanese capital, Beirut. The two sides have been at war since the October 7th Hamas attack on Israel, which led to the Israeli assault on the Gaza Strip. The Lebanese militant group Hezbollah called it a serious attack on Lebanon and a dangerous development in the war. Donald Trump has challenged a ruling in the U.S. state of Maine removing him from the state's upcoming primary ballot. Trump's lawyers filed an 11-page appeal seeking to overturn the ruling last week by Maine's Secretary of State Shenna Bellows. Bellows used the 14th Amendment to the Constitution as the basis for the decision, which forbids people who have engaged in insurrection from holding office, citing Trump's role in the riot at the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. The Trump campaign is also expected to contest a similar ruling in Colorado, setting up a showdown in the Supreme Court over whether states can keep Trump off the ballot. Embattled Harvard president Claudine Gay has resigned following allegations of plagiarism and questions over her ability to respond to anti-Semitism on campus. Her tenure of just over 6 months has been the shortest presidency in the university's history. FSN's U.S. correspondent Nick Harper reports.
Claudine Gay has been Harvard's president for just 6 months and 2 days. Her decision to resign comes after weeks of anger and questions about her ability to adequately lead the prestigious university. In early December, she appeared before a congressional hearing and struggled to answer questions about whether calls for a genocide of Jews would be in violation of Harvard's rules. Allegations of plagiarism in her scholarly work have followed, leaving the president unable to stay in position at one of America's top universities. I'm Nick Harper in Washington.
A Chinese foreign exchange student who was the victim of a cyber kidnapping has been found alive in the U.S. state of Utah. Officials found the student in a tent in freezing temperatures. FSN's Tony Waterman has more.
According to police, Zhuang was found very cold and scared, but uninjured. He had isolated himself in a rural part of Utah, manipulated by his remote kidnappers into believing he'd be injured if he didn't do as they said. Police say he took pictures of his own captivity, and his parents were scammed out of $80,000 in ransom money. Utah police say a number of foreign students have fallen prey to cyber kidnapping in recent months, where victims are tricked into holding themselves captive by remote kidnappers who monitor them through video. Tony Waterman, Texas.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
What is up, all of our liberty-loving friends? This is a special episode of Dumb Bleep of the Year. This is one of our recap episodes for the voting for Dumb Bleep of the Year. So we're going to be covering each month, and then the winners of each month will go into a quarterly semifinal, and then we'll bring that into the final four. And of course, the live group, the Fed Haters Club, will be voting on what's going to win Dumb Bleep of the Year. The winner will get a trophy that says that they won Dumb Bleep of the Year, and the person who submitted that specific Dumb Bleep in the live group, or it could be on Twitter, or it could just be me, will get a trophy to put on their mantle at home. So let's get in to Dumb Bleep of the Year. So number 2 is going to be the great backtracking. Right now, we've got 3 different individuals, so we'll have to roll through them pretty quick.
From science?
We've got Fauci, Randy Weingarten, and Justin Trudeau all working on backtracking lately and saying
silently.
No, they're out there saying, "I didn't do that." Like Trudeau's like, "I never forced anyone to get vaccinated," and Weingarten's like, "I didn't want the schools to be closed," and Fauci's like, "Well, I didn't." Show me one school that I shut down. I didn't do it. I didn't do anything about that. I have nothing to do about it. I saw a new Babylon Bee article saying that it said something about Dr. Fauci says that he wasn't responsible for shutting down any schools, and also he's never heard of COVID. It's pretty good article headline.
Define COVID.
So Fauci in this New York Times piece. A couple things. Now, I know the big thing that people have been talking about is what he said about masking. He said that at a population level, masking doesn't work. It reduces transmission by about 10%, which is essentially nothing when you're talking about a virus like this. But he did say, the reason I don't think it's the bombshell quote everyone thinks it is because he does say that on the individual level, the masking does help and it does protect you, but the population just is not going to get it right. It doesn't do anything.
And that's mainly because they don't wear masks right.
Yes.
They pull them down to talk.
They're just not going to.
Yeah.
So one of these quotes here, when we're talking about the economy. Now, if everyone remembers right, I know this was such a long time ago, but do you remember how you were choosing profits over people? You remember that back when you wanted to keep the economy open, stuff like that? So we're talking about the economy here. Fauci says certainly there could have been a better understanding of why people were emphasizing the economy. But when people say Fauci shut down the economy, it wasn't Fauci. Oh, God, the third person stuff. Jeez. The CDC was the organization that made those recommendations. I happen to be perceived as the personification of the recommendations. I don't know. Maybe it's because your full-time job was out there propagandizing the people, on behalf of the government.
Also, wasn't it your emails going back and forth with other folks at the FDA and CDC?
To pretend that he had nothing to do with this.
Right.
Now he can. He's got the ability to deny this because he actually was not in a position of power to make those decisions and make those decrees. But to pretend like he wasn't out there saying that this is what we needed to do and that people weren't he didn't know that people were listening to him and that he was directing public opinion and that the public opinion is important because the government slightly cares what the public thinks and that he was out there doing the work of all of these people in order to get the people behind actually locking down all of these places. He knows that that's what he was doing.
So he's gaslighting about his influence.
Yes.
Yeah.
I happen to be perceived as the personification of the recommendations. But
that's because you are.
Because you were literally out. Yes. But show me a school that I shut down and show me a factory that I shut down. Never. I never did. I gave a public health recommendation that echoed the CDC's recommendation and people made a decision based on that. But I never criticized the people who had to make the decisions one way or the other.
This lack of accountability is so infuriating. It's so infuriating.
Let me see. I certainly think things could have been done differently and better on both sides. I mean, anybody who thinks that what we or anybody else did was perfect is not looking at reality. Nothing was done perfectly. But what I can say is that, at least to my perception, the
my truth.
Yes.
My truth is.
The emphasis strictly on the science and public health. That is what public health people should do. Or that is what public health people should do. I'm not an economist. The CDC and prevention, the CDC is not an economic organization. So what infuriates me about this one is back in that time of you're putting profits over people, we were listening to what people like Fauci or people from the CDC were saying. It was mainly Fauci. And they would come out here and say, this is what we need to do. We need to shut this stuff down. And anytime you would make an economic argument, then people would say, oh, you don't care about the science. You don't care about what Fauci's out there saying. You put profits over people. You want people to die. And now Fauci himself,
even if you questioned it, by the way, if you just brought a question that said, hey, there's more than one way people die, and maybe we should take a bunch of different opinions into consideration before we just make emotional decisions.
Yeah.
That was wrong. You couldn't even question it.
And so now we've got the American Federation of Teachers president. This is all still number 2. We have 9 officially today. American Federation of Teachers president Randi Weingarten, and we will play a video from her, if you will remember properly. In fact, well, we'll play a few videos because she is gaslighting the mother F out of everyone right now. Here we go.
I'm sorry, Congressman Raskin. We spent every day from February on trying to get schools open. We knew that remote education was not a substitute for opening schools, but we also knew that people had to be safe. And maybe it's because I live in New York City. I live near a hospital. Every other minute there was an ambulance. There was terror. Our members were terrified. Others were terrified. And what we were simply looking for was clear scientific guidance. And when we couldn't get it, we did it ourselves. And we worked with doctors and we worked with others. And we just tried to get it out there.
Okay, now, I'm sorry. I made an emotional decision and now I can't take accountability for it.
Yeah, so the crazy part about this, let me make sure I go to the right thing. Is she is actually able to annoyingly back this up. And let me show you how this worked. I'll play what she put out, which she then locked responses to, by the way. And even there's let me see if I can find it. There's a community notes on here. She posts out here saying, Republicans on the House COVID subcommittee want you to think I wanted to keep schools closed. Here's what I actually said over and over again. And there's going to be a bunch of clips of her saying that we needed to open schools. Everyone get mentally prepared for that, because from very early on, she was out there saying that that remote learning is not the same and that we need to get people back in school. She was, in fact, out there saying that. We will get to the contradiction afterwards.
We want to go back to in school. We need to actually get back to in-person learning. I am a big believer that we have to reopen safely and carefully. If you hear the frustration in my voice,
I do.
We put out a plan at the end of April. The teachers want it. 76% of teachers say they're in for going to school because teachers want to teach kids. They want to go back to school. Yeah. They know that it's important for kids. We want schools to reopen. We know in-school learning is better than remote.
We've been trying to get kids back into school throughout the country, and
Okay. This is where things like this become infuriating to me, because she was essentially out there holding people for ransom. This is the interesting part. She wants schools to reopen, right? And she's the president of the teachers union. Okay, so she's out there telling people, we want schools to open. So give us $300 billion and make sure that there's brand new ventilation put in every single school, and make sure that everyone is able to keep 6 feet of social distance, and make sure that if there is any type of community spread, that the school can shut down immediately, and make sure that all of these things are in there. We want schools to open.
Extortion.
And yes, thank you, extortion. And so she sets up this impossible standard that people can't follow, and then goes out there and says, hey, I'm the one that wants schools to open. So if you want schools to open, all you got to do is do this. And if you don't do this, then you don't want schools to open. I do. And so now she's able to play all of these things.
Yeah.
It's, it's infuriating. I'll tell you what, this is from July. Teachers Union considers strike over school reopenings. There's plenty of things like this. Teacher Union Chief, we have to trust experts, scientists to safely reopen our schools. That's in August of 2020. Reckless, callous, and cruel. Teachers Chief denounces Trump plan to reopen schools. That was from The Guardian. And so essentially, like you said, she was trying to extort people on behalf of the teachers. We need to raise all the teachers' pay by X amount of percent. They have budget plans out there that were like $280 billion in additional funding to do all of these COVID revamps to all of the schools, or they couldn't go back to any of the schools. And so, yeah, sure, she wanted them to reopen under her conditions. Mm-hmm.
It's impressive.
It is impressive.
It's impressive. You got to hand it to her.
Don't act like you're not impressed. Okay.
And what's weird is it's almost like she set all this up knowing there was going to be backlash later. So she made sure to say, like, we want to open the schools.
Yeah.
So that she could have that clip.
Exactly.
There.
Here's Justin Trudeau talking about vaccines. I think I can skip ahead a little bit in this if I remember correctly.
Maybe all sorts of different reasons why someone is hesitant to get vaccinated.
This is recently.
But I make a distinction, and I have always have, between someone choosing for personal reasons to choose not to get vaccinated and someone deliberately using misinformation to mislead and scare other people with so-called facts that aren't facts at all, that lead them to make a choice that endangers their lives and the lives of other citizens. So as Prime Minister, through the greatest public health crisis that we've faced in 100 years in this country, since the Spanish flu, my responsibility was to keep as many Canadians alive as possible. And all of the scientists and the medical experts and the researchers, not just in Canada, but around the world, understood that vaccination was going to be the way through this. And therefore, while not forcing anyone to get vaccinated, I chose to make sure that all the incentives and all the protections were there to encourage Canadians to get vaccinated. And that's
So I didn't force you.
No.
I just wouldn't let you do anything else.
And that's the other thing. Like he's able to deny some type of accusation that he forced people to get vaccinated. It's just you weren't able to travel. You couldn't even leave the country.
Yeah.
You couldn't work.
Yeah.
And so
it's like, imagine, so think of this in another scenario that makes it even more egregious in my opinion. Imagine Trudeau kidnapped a woman and kept her locked in his basement. It looks like something he would do.
He does
I don't know.
seem like that,
allegedly, yeah. I'm not making any claims.
You didn't say he has done it.
No,
you just say that he looks like a guy who would do that.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then, he didn't ever rape her, but he wouldn't let her go outside unless she had sex with him.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't force her to have sex with me. I would never do such a thing. But no, I wouldn't let her leave the basement unless she went outside. That's the same principle, right? It's like, okay, I didn't force anyone to take a vaccine, but you couldn't be a human being unless you took it. You couldn't travel, you couldn't eat in restaurants, you couldn't go to the grocery store, you couldn't walk down the street, couldn't do anything, couldn't be a human being.
Everyone's heard all the clips. There's a nice thread here of tons of clips of Trudeau talking about the consequences for not getting vaccinated and all the, basically all your rights that you would lose if you didn't get vaccinated.
You're right. They wouldn't allow people to go to funerals. They told you that you were killing your grandma. All kinds of things. The United States is the same way. It's like, okay, we didn't force people to get vaccinated. 100%.
That's why we did this, and it was the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why not just back up your position?
From these mistakes, take some accountability. Like, as human beings, you're allowed to make mistakes. It's when you don't take accountability and want to be better in the future, and you just want to be so defensive over your position as if I'm not wrong, take accountability for what happened and then be like, let's not make this mistake again, and we can all be decent people. And then that would go over much better. It's like, I always bring up the story of this, the CEO of Domino's who came in, and I think when he came in, Domino's stock was at like less than $2 a share. They were failing miserably, about to go bankrupt.
Oh, crap. How's this trade going?
The first thing that this guy did, I wish I remembered his name.
Oh, sweet.
The first thing he did was he came out and took accountability for how terrible Domino's was.
Yeah.
And he said, our dough is terrible. The ingredients are terrible. Our service is terrible. We're not clean. All of these things. And then what did he do? Took responsibility for it and said, hey, we're going to clean up all these mistakes. He did. Domino's became one of the fastest growing old chains out there. And now I think their stock's up at $400, $500 a share.
that's the difference in incentives. In the free market, the businesses have to do this. They can't say, oh, we didn't do anything wrong, screw you, because they've got competition. The governments don't have any competition. Like, I don't have it pulled up over. Copperhead just said the governments don't have, the governments can't go out of business. And so when you are a government, you cannot admit that you are wrong, because that means, I've gone through this a billion times, you can't admit that you're wrong because that means that you can be wrong, which means that people can question your authority because they know that there's a possibility you could be wrong. Therefore, you can never admit that you were wrong when it comes to something, because that will undermine all of your power. All right, that was only number 2. It's 12-14.
Also, you notice that people who tilt towards narcissism take these positions of power.
Of course. Oh, they're the ones that make it, because it takes those traits to get to those places. And the people that aren't narcissistic or psychopaths or anything like that, they don't make it to those places. Very rare that like a good person makes it to that position, because a bad person did things that bad people would do to get past all of the good people. This is one that's been very viral over the last day or so. Have you seen this video?
Haven't.
Connor Boyack posted it out, and it went very viral. Connor is the one who does the Tuttle Twins. He's been on the show before, and he posted this out here. Colorado 7th grader kicked out of class for Gadsden patch because of slavery origins. Now, there is a video associated with this. Charlie, have you seen this video?
I have not.
Neither have I.
Okay, here we go.
And so let's see what happens.
Thank you. Do they know what the Gadsden flag is? That it's a historical flag?
So the reason that they do not want the flag, the reason we do not want the flag displayed is due to its origins with slavery and slave trade. That is what was, that's the reasoning behind them do not want this displayed.
The Gadsden flag?
The Don't Tread on Me.
Okay. Which is the Gadsden flag? Okay. Okay, so he's, what's going to happen if he doesn't take it off?
He is able to go. I was actually just telling him, like, I was upset that he was missing so much school. I'm like, so I asked him, can he just take his stuff out of his bag and go back to class? Like, I just want him to go back to class. The bag can't go back. It's got a patch on it, because we can't have that in and around other kids. So that's what I was trying, and then he said you were close. So I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with slavery. That's like the Revolutionary War patch that was displayed when they were fighting the British. Like, that's the revolution. Maybe you're thinking of like the Confederate Confederate flag.
Okay, I am just here to enforce. No, I am here to enforce the policy that was provided by the district. Okay. And definitely, you have every right to not agree with it. I mean,
because the ACLU says that he's allowed to wear that. If you go on their website, it's says in big letters.
All I'm saying is that
unless there's a ban on patches, period. Like if you said there's no patches allowed at the school, you cannot display what you think or anything like that, or what cheer or anything like that. I think it's one-sided, because you allow some patches, but not other patches.
Okay, so we get the idea.
Looks like Mom set up a recording.
Very good.
Very nice.
Very good, Mom. Good job. So they say that they can't allow it because of its origins with slavery and the slave trade, which it doesn't have any origins. Now, Gadsden, the guy who...
it is an antebellum flag. Prior to the Civil War.
So is the American flag.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's next.
You can see it in the video.
That's next.
Now, it wasn't the Betsy Ross flag hanging up there or anything, but I'm pretty sure that flag, of course, he didn't have all the 50 states at that time, so maybe it's a little bit different than it was at that time. But America was started when there was slavery, so I'm surprised they're allowing the American flag to be hung in that room. It's absolutely ridiculous. And the funnier thing is that the person who said it, because of its origins with slavery and the slave trade, she has no idea what she's talking about. Now, Gadsden, I believe, did have slaves, but once again, there's an American flag back there, and we're in America. And in fact, basically every country that you go to, you'll be able to say the same thing. What's the flag in Britain, the Union Jack or whatever they call it? You know, you're just going to be able to say this about everything. You can't just pick and choose which ones you're not going to allow. She's right. The actual origins, when this was being used, they did carry it during the Revolutionary War. You know, you see people carrying flags out there. Old Betsy had her flag, and old Gadsden's flag was out there as well.
Those racists.
So I'm going to read they did let him back in after all the backlash. And in fact, let me also show you, I think Connor posted out another video, or it was a screenshot. The next day he went to school wearing like a Revolutionary War hat.
Nice. But this reminds me of the Patriot.
Yeah. So that's cool. Anyway, totally ridiculous. And what a lot of people are pointing out online is that, well, they allow Black Lives Matter patch. If someone had a patch like that, they allow the rainbow flag patch or whatever. So maybe we just shouldn't allow any of them out there, or maybe we should just allow whatever. Or can they set rules on what they want to allow and not allow?
Can you have?
Of course, they can set rules on what they want to allow.
Can you have a hammer and sickle patch?
You probably could.
No
one would say anything about it. But if you wore a Nazi flag now, that'd be different, because they want people with super high death tolls. They don't want those little BS death tolls. You know, they want as many people dead as possible, apparently. So anyway, totally ridiculous. I don't remember what dumb bleep number this was. Dumb bleep number 5. I mean, I happen to be a big fan of the "Don't Tread on Me" flag.
Your license plate.
my plate
is literally the "Don't Tread on Me."
Thank you, Tennessee, for having really cool yellow license plates.
I guess, can you pull into a school parking lot?
Not that one. I don't know. I guess I'm allowed to go anywhere in Tennessee,
but not in Colorado.
But we got a Gadsden flag right there behind Charlie. You can see it. There's even another one right over there.
Surrounded by racism.
Just racism everywhere.
Tom says he has one on his chicken coop.
How about that?
Yeah.
On the chicken coop.
Chickens want freedom. Better open up that coop, Tom.
That's sad. Sad for those chickens.
Yeah.
Let's see. We already talked about all this. This was the article.
Speaking of chickens, I had a friend send me a meme that circled the package of a chicken that says these chickens were raised in a stress-free environment.
Yeah.
And I said, if somebody told me that a cage was stress-free, I'd climb in. I'd climb in that cage.
I buy the nice eggs out there. Yeah, we buy the expensive ones. Have you seen pictures and stuff of where the cheap eggs come from?
Have you seen the pictures of where the expensive ones come from?
I have. It's not, but I assume it's better. No, they're free range eggs.
Oh,
free range.
Are
eggs.
They really free?
I haven't.
Or do they let them out of their cage for 10 minutes?
They would never be allowed to put that on the packaging if that weren't the case. Sure. The government has got my back on this.
Gourmet chef Ted Allen is here. He's the author of the new cookbook, Pretentious Foodie Bullshit, and he's going to show us how to cook some fussy little foodie dishes for you and all your asshole friends. Welcome back to the show, Ted. What sort of stupid, over-elaborate, fancy-ass meal are you going to make for us today?
We're going to cook one of the very most pretentious dishes in my cookbook.
Oh.
It's a stupid, trendy piece of fish coated in some kind of nut you've never heard of, served alongside a puree of baby something or other.
Oh, great!
Sounds annoying.
Let's get started.
Okay, have at it.
First, it's very important to choose the most expensive type of fish you can find for some vague environmental reason that you can then parrot back to your faux intellectual gay wad dinner party guests.
Okay.
And now I assume all these other ingredients are organic and locally sourced and all that bullshit.
Oh, yeah.
Now, what about the pureed baby turnips, Ted?
You must blanch them for 30 seconds, then you shock them in an ice bath. Peel them, then boil them again with a little sugar, thyme, and a pinch of salt.
This is the Onion News Network.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
The latest episode of Free Talk Live continues with Hour 3 up next after the news here at listen.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. Hamas and Israel have confirmed that Hamas's deputy leader Salah al-Aruri has been killed in an Israeli drone strike in a suburb of the Lebanese capital, Beirut. The two sides have been at war since the October 7th Hamas attack on Israel, which led to the Israeli assault on the Gaza Strip. The Lebanese militant group Hezbollah called it a serious attack on Lebanon and a dangerous development in the war. Donald Trump has challenged a ruling in the U.S. state of Maine removing him from the state's upcoming primary ballot. Trump's lawyers filed an 11-page appeal seeking to overturn the ruling last week by Maine's Secretary of State Shenna Bellows. Bellows used the 14th Amendment to the Constitution as the basis for the decision, which forbids people who have engaged in insurrection from holding office, citing Trump's role in the riot at the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. The Trump campaign is also expected to contest a similar ruling in Colorado, setting up a showdown in the Supreme Court over whether states can keep Trump off the ballot. Embattled Harvard president Claudine Gay has resigned following allegations of plagiarism and questions over her ability to respond to anti-Semitism on campus. Her tenure of just over 6 months has been the shortest presidency in the university's history. FSN's U.S. correspondent Nick Harper reports.
Claudine Gay has been Harvard's president for just 6 months and 2 days. Her decision to resign comes after weeks of anger and questions about her ability to adequately lead the prestigious university. In early December, she appeared before a congressional hearing and struggled to answer questions about whether calls for a genocide of Jews would be in violation of Harvard's rules. Allegations of plagiarism in her scholarly work have followed, leaving the president unable to stay in position at one of America's top universities. I'm Nick Harper in Washington.
A Chinese foreign exchange student who was the victim of a cyber kidnapping has been found alive in the U.S. state of Utah. Officials found the student in a tent in freezing temperatures. FSN's Tony Waterman has more.
According to police, Zhuang was found very cold and scared, but uninjured. He had isolated himself in a rural part of Utah, manipulated by his remote kidnappers into believing he'd be injured if he didn't do as they said. Police say he took pictures of his own captivity, and his parents were scammed out of $80,000 in ransom money. Utah police say a number of foreign students have fallen prey to cyber kidnapping in recent months, where victims are tricked into holding themselves captive by remote kidnappers who monitor them through video. Tony Waterman, Texas.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today remembering the utterly tremendous Tom Wilkinson, who died over the weekend at 75. He had an unparalleled range, and while most obituaries in their first paragraph mention the full Monty, in reality audiences will have their own favourite appearances that may transcend that 1997 smash. Wilkinson was born in Yorkshire in 1948, attended the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts in London after spending some of his early years in Canada. His many successes included Shakespeare in Love, Belle, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel. He detested interviews in which he was asked stupid questions, and 10 years ago offered this response when an inquisitor asked him which role had most removed him from his comfort zone.
Acting is my comfort zone. Really? Yeah, that's my area of expertise, and there's nothing I've ever done that's sort of discommoded me. There are some things that are more difficult than other things, but you solve them because that's what you're meant to do. If suddenly somebody put me on the top of a horse and in the middle of the Kentucky Derby, I would think I'm out of my comfort zone now. That would be. But acting, What? It's what I do.
The disdain in that answer explains partly why Tom Wilkinson never moved to Hollywood. Nominated twice for an Oscar, the actor died at home in North London, surrounded by family. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The main news again. Hamas's deputy leader is killed in an Israeli drone strike in a suburb of the Lebanese capital, Beirut. Donald Trump challenges a ruling in the U.S. state of Maine removing him from the state's upcoming primary ballot. And embattled Harvard president Claudine Gay resigns following allegations of plagiarism and questions over her response to anti-Semitism on campus. That is the latest feature story news. Ira Spitzer reporting.
You're putting your name, address, credit card number, social security number, all that. You're just chucking it right up onto the internet where any disgusting degenerate can grab it. The only way to make sure that your identity is never stolen is to change it every 3 years. That's what I do. 2 years ago, I was Ellen Foxcroft, attorney at law. 3 years before that, I was Trish Homingwood, patient at the Austin State Psychiatric Hospital. And 3 years before that, I was Regina Dupree, lead singer of the soul group Derriere. And you know what? None of my identities has ever been stolen. So to make sure that your personal information stays safe, you gotta follow some simple steps. First, you're gonna need new pieces of identification, right? But don't worry, old Shelby knows a guy up in Detroit, can fix these up pronto, real cheap. Next, you're gonna have to fake your own death. But all that takes is a mold of your teeth, a corpse, and a $500 used car for setting on fire.
This is the Onion News Network.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
What is up, all of our liberty-loving friends? This is a special episode of Dumb Bleep of the Year. This is one of our recap episodes for the voting for Dumb Bleep of the Year. So we're going to be covering each month, and then the winners of each month will go into a quarterly semifinal, and then we'll bring that into the final four. And of course, the live group, the Fed Haters Club, will be voting on what's going to win Dumb Bleep of the Year. The winner will get a trophy that says that they won Dumb Bleep of the Year, and the person who submitted that specific Dumb Bleep in the live group, or it could be on Twitter, or it could just be me, will get a trophy to put on their mantle at home. So let's get in to Dumb Bleep of the Year. You want to double team this one? Or how do you want to do it? Okay, so from Sarah Jones in New York Magazine. The parental rights movement actively threatens the safety and well-being of children and, by extension, democracy itself.
Jesus. These people.
So this is a real article.
And I am going to say these people. I'm so tired of it.
And you're not going to say who these people are. They can self-identify as people who agree with what this dumb bitch is saying in this article.
Oh my God. The real threat is you, Sarah. And everyone who thinks like you do.
Okay, let's go through some of this. Children are not property in New York Magazine. Starts with a quote from the book of Proverbs. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. To certain right-wing Christians, the concept is simple. A child can be broken or stamped into shape, much like any domesticated animal. Though all parents hope they'll pass their values on to their children, for some that hope is more of a mandate. Authoritarianism is gospel to modern conservatives. Nowhere is that clearer than in their assaults on the children. The architects of state bans on gender-affirming care for minors say, falsely, that children are at risk from predatory physicians and activists. A gender cult destroys families, claimed conservative commentator Matt Walsh. The real sin isn't that trans youth will suffer, but that the parental grip might loosen from these tyrannical, authoritarian parents.
Turn your children over to us to mutilate their genitals, then that's the crime.
That's the authoritarianism.
Yeah.
And actually, it's the fact that parents want to teach their kids or even control their kids at all. It's this idea that you should even try to control your children that is inherent for the authoritarian right.
Bailey said, are we going to have to start losing our kids in boating accidents along with our firearms? Maybe.
It's possible to draw a line. Now, she goes on talking for a little bit about some of the recent child labor law bills in certain states. We haven't talked about those at all, but I guess making it possible for younger teens to work at some places. Really haven't looked into it that much. It's possible to draw a line between the push for child labor and the rights attacks on trans children. In each case, conservatives betray a conviction that a child is the property of parents. Because parents own their children, they can dispose of the child as they see fit. They can deny them the evidence-based medical care. They can put a child to work. They can make sure a child is sheltered from the dangers of a serious education. When a child goes hungry, that's because a parent isn't caring for their property. And what a person does with their property is their right.
Jesus.
Like any piece of property, a child has value to conservative activists. They are key to a future the conservatives want to win. Parental rights are merely one path to the total capture of state power and the imposition of authoritarian hierarchy on us all. Now,
well, go ahead.
Are children property for the parents?
No.
I don't think so either. I think children are a responsibility for parents, for the person that brings them into the world. It's different from your normal property rights. For instance, I own this mouse. Not a mouse. Calm down, rat lady.
It's not a real
mouse. It's a computer mouse. Okay? We're outside of your jurisdiction right now. Okay?
You're not coming for me.
I own this mouse. I don't want to break it. I own this hat. Okay? This is my property. Right here. Now, I can choose to wear it, and I can be all kind with it, I can play with it, I can caress it,
Or you can set it on
I
fire.
can look at it, and I can see it's a cowboy's hat, and I can take it and rip it up and throw it down on the ground and destroy it.
Set it on fire.
And later I can be like, what happened to my hat? Mm-hmm. Okay? Now, that's what I can do with property. When it comes to a person, and whether or not they are your property, even if it is your child that you reared, bore onto the world. Okay, it's your responsibility as a parent, but you can't treat them like you would normal property. That is where.
And what Dan makes the distinction here, he says you own the responsibility to raise your children.
Yes, that is your property. That is your intellectual, your moral, that property that you have, that it is your responsibility to take care of the child. Now, even as libertarians and some people anarchists or whatever, I do think that if a parent is going to harm their children, that someone has the right to come in and protect that child from harm. Okay? And so that's where this whole thing gets really, really fuzzy. Do you want to go on with the state laws passed by conservative Republicans?
Well, I wanted to say real quick that she makes a lot of false statements here, which is they can deny them evidence-based medical care.
Yeah.
The evidence-based, especially for trans care, because that's what she's going to go into here, by the way, is so far-fetched that it's disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
And for them to say, well, look at the research is that they point to is not science at all. It's completely made up, basically. And they're using it as their gospel to say, if you deny a trans kid their right, or not even if you deny, if you don't affirm the feelings of your child, you're denying them evidence-based care, which is a completely false choice to begin with, because there is no evidence-based medical care for mutilating the genitals of a child.
The only evidence base they have are some studies that explicitly followed people who went through transitioning for 12 months during the process of when they started it and after they did it. And they followed people for 12 months, and they showed that the the suicidal ideation dropped by, I don't know, like 70% or something like that, I think is the number. During those 12 months when you got what you wanted, what you felt like you wanted, you got affirmed, you got to go through this process. Now, it doesn't follow
receiving all the validation.
Yes. It doesn't follow for after that, for later in life when you realize that you can't have any sexual pleasure, or that you maybe made a bad decision and you should have just gotten a butterfly tattoo on your foot or something like that, you know. And so, no offense, okay, to anyone, I think they're great. I love butterflies. Yeah. Okay. I just don't like feet. That's why I said that.
Yeah. State laws passed by conservative Republicans have made LGBTQ children, in particular, more vulnerable to abuse at home by practically requiring schools to out them to their parents. The denial of gender-affirming care is another act of violence.
Yep.
Far-right activists invent tales of wanton surgeries on minors and irreversible hormonal treatments. Those are not tales, by the way.
Yeah, now they, you know, it's tough to tell exactly what people are doing, but they're not running around, first off, they're not running around like cutting the penises off of a 7-year-old or anything like that, okay? They will do these top surgeries, as everyone's becoming accustomed to now, I guess, these top surgeries on younger teen girls. They'll do things like that. And they will do hormone therapy, which interrupts your development, messes up your development, causes problems for the rest of your life afterwards. So
it's also being linked to cancer.
Yeah,
and all kinds of things. Yeah. So, in doing so, they obscure the high suicide rate among LGBT youth who need gender-affirming care as a matter of life or death. What about the suicide rate of those who have transitioned later on in life? We don't want to talk about those, do we?
No. Well, that's just because of society in general.
Yeah.
Probably.
In the home and at school, children must also fear gun violence in the name of the Second Amendment. Adults who encourage the proliferation of guns do so knowing well that children will die. In their hierarchy, the adult right to a gun is worth more than the child's right to live. Reduced to the level of a collectible or a beloved pet, the child is not a person to the right.
See why we did the rat video before this one?
Yeah.
You know?
Only the unborn are spared the right's cruelty. Conservatives claim personhood for the fetus who cannot disobey or requires nothing but a womb.
Whereas once a child is born, they're totally fine with crushing up the child and cutting its head off and like sending it through a tube. Totally fine with that. It's only like in the womb that they try to protect the child from that kind of thing.
Yeah, afterwards yeah.
Okay, just making sure.
Afterwards, they're fine with chopping the child up and
yeah, no problem.
Not taking care of them or anything.
No problem at all.
That was sarcasm.
But, okay, yeah, sarcasm.
The fetus is more valuable than the child because the fetus is a means to an end, the subjugation of women. The problem is, people like this, I think, really believe this. And I laugh because it's so sad that I don't know what to do about it. Because I'm like, I feel badly for you, honestly.
I am sorry that she feels this way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Once born, a child's value depreciates. The parental right to train the child takes precedence over the child's basic rights. There are ways to circumvent a child's established right to an education, as conservatives know. Homeschooling laws are so lax in the U.S. that thousands of children have essentially disappeared into an academic void.
As opposed to the government-run schools that are just doing an amazing job with everyone.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Even if a child goes to public school, chronic underfunding deprives many children, especially in poor areas, of a sound education. In much of the country, trans youth aren't treated like people with medical needs, but political targets. This is ownership, and the U.S. rarely interferes. There is one exception to the right's belief in absolute parental rule: trans-affirming parents. A defiant parent is a threat to the right. They've stepped out of place and must be subdued. No, ma'am, you have stepped out of place and you must be subdued. I'm no longer participating in this delusion that, like, do you know how different men and women are?
I do.
By the way.
Yeah.
It's not at a chromosomal level, right? It's not just that it's in your DNA and then that leads to women having breasts and a vagina and a uterus, and men having testicles and a penis and no breasts. That's not the only things that separate men and women. Did you know almost every single one of your cells in your body is either male or female? Okay. Do you know that a woman's heart is made up of female heart cells that actually suffer from different arrhythmia and things than
Charlie's going down.
Than a male's does. And that goes for literally every cell in your body, just about. There are some that aren't that way, but the majority of your cells that have a nucleus, which almost all of them do, are literally male or female. The reality of gender-affirming care is that's all delusional. And we're going to call it what it is. It's psychotic.
It's mutilation. It's abuse.
Yeah.
Is what it is. When they talk about this, there is one exception to the right's belief in absolute parental rule: trans-affirming parents. There are other exceptions, by the way, and it would be anyone else who tries to physically harm their child. If you're beating the crap out of your child, you stab your child with a knife, you shoot them, do something like that. In fact, even people on the right would believe that those parents should lose the rights to their child, or that they shouldn't be able to harm their child also.
If you're an alcoholic or drug addict.
All kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
And so, no, it's not the one exception being parents who want to affirm their trans kid. It's actually anyone who is abusive to their children. Okay? All right, next thing.
And follows that up by saying they've stepped out of place and must be subdued. And that's where I was like, no, ma'am, you have stepped out of place.
In this perspective, rights aren't innate. They're determined instead by a person's place in the conservative hierarchy. The opposite view, the correct one, the one that she holds, that everyone has rights by the virtue of their humanity.
Which is true, by the way.
The rights that she decides that you have, by the way, requires us to change the way we commonly think of children. Liberals aren't immune to the belief that children are property. The mainstream fear-mongering over trans youth tells us that much. Yet combating the power of the parental rights movement requires an answering conviction in the rights of children. We can see them as people. Uniquely vulnerable, yes, but nevertheless, people who have independent minds and will develop private lives of their own. And you need to stop trying to control your kids.
And they can when they're 18.
Children are not dogs to train, but adults in formation. They will learn someday soon that the future belongs to them, that what they do with that knowledge matters to everyone. Children aren't private property then, but a public responsibility.
A public responsibility.
To expand our democratic project to children is to grant them the security the right seeks to deny them. Education, health care, shelter, food, a better America begins with a child.
And what she's advocating for here is that the right way to approach this in order to change the landscape of America is to indoctrinate and manipulate children to grow up thinking like they do.
Yeah.
And not the other way around.
It's literally just she wants to be able to.
She's saying to expand our democratic project to children. They're like, oh.
It's a public responsibility, by the way, Charlie. She's saying we're going to democratically raise your children.
But my thing is how long did they talk about, oh, we're not coming for your children. It's not about the children. We're adults. We just want to play dress up.
Just like no one was coming for your guns.
We just want to play dress up. Let adults be adults. Love is love.
That's not where we are now.
They've been coming for your children the whole time. And it's absolutely disgusting. And, I've tried to be better understanding of, let's say, trans adults. And I've tried to be, I guess, in a libertarian sense, that you're free to do what you want as long as you don't harm people and take their stuff. But this ideology is so corrosive. I feel like I'm leaning more towards taking the Matt Walsh route. And because I feel like I'm becoming, I'll say it, righteously angry at people like Sarah Jones, who disgustingly admit that they want to manipulate and indoctrinate your children and mutilate them over your right to protect your children.
We've made it to a point in society where somehow we got to a point where people could just openly advocate for what is child abuse, and they get to act like they're on the moral high ground on the subject. And it's not the case. They're wrong. There's something mentally wrong with these people. They are incorrect. I don't care where their feelings are on the matter, what happened to them in their lives that led them to this place. We're not going to capitulate to it because you're literally trying to abuse children. Children do require some control from the parents. You can't just let them do whatever the hell they want to do. They could do all sorts of different bodily harm to themselves. Why not let them drive a car? Why don't we just openly, might as well let them get tattoos. That's fine. That's not going to change your life forever. Okay, that's different. But where does this end? No, you end when it comes to physical harm in the child. The child cannot actually make a decision for the rest of their lives. That's why they're kids. That's why we have parents. That's why they live with their parents, because kids make really dumb decisions because they're not thinking about the future like you're supposed to. It's hard enough to get adults to think about the future instead of the now. We're becoming more and more like children the further in time we go right now. That's really what's happening. She's a child. Sarah, whatever the hell her name is basically just an 8-year-old girl making an argument that the parents should be able to tell her what to do. Only she can write decently. She's a better manipulator than most. I've seen some manipulative kids. Okay. They'll do it. There's a 16-second clip going around of the really important part that he says, but I want to get the context because I don't want it to be taken out of context. But it's good. Number 9, Al Sharpton.
Many mornings, some of the guys in the neighborhood would say, Rev, I caught a case. I have never walked down that block and somebody said I caught 3 cases. This is just as low as it gets. I've never heard of 3 cases on one individual in 3 jurisdictions. So this is serious. But on the other side of it, one day our children's children will read American history. And can you imagine our reading that James Madison or Thomas Jefferson tried to overthrow the government so they could stay in power? That's what we're looking at. We're looking at American history, and how it will play out is going to be very important. The sad part about this to me is that this is...
All right, that's enough of that. So
I have no idea what he's talking about.
So
Trump overthrowing the government? What is he talking about?
The clip that's going around is, can you imagine our kids reading in the history books that James Madison and Thomas Jefferson tried to overthrow the government? Which is literally what they did. They did overthrow a government. That's why we know who they are.
Yeah.
All right. That's why he's trending on Twitter right now. And so that's what's currently being discussed. And I think that that's a very important point. Not the point that he was making, but it is an important point to know that our country was founded by people who overthrew a government. Like that's how we started. Insurrectionists, actually. So
they seceded
from
the British government.
They destroyed the British government. By doing that. Their democracy. I don't know. I think that's what we're doing.
Destroyed Parliament's democracy. And the king's power.
So that's number 9, Al Sharpton. Charlie seemed completely unfazed by that one, and that one's what was supposed to be the absolute dumbest one.
I just didn't understand what he was trying to get at.
This is novelist Tom Robbins. When my mother was diagnosed with glaucoma, her
Her conservative Virginia physician told her there was only one treatment that might ease her pain and save her eyesight. That treatment was medical marijuana, which he could not prescribe. I offered to get her some and teach her how to use it effectively, but my father objected because marijuana was against the law. So my mother, who loved to read and walk in nature, was condemned to grow cruelly, unnecessarily blind. Tragedies like this happen all the time, but they don't have to keep happening. To learn more about medical marijuana, call the Marijuana Policy Project at 1-877-JOIN-MPP or visit them on the web at mpp.org.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. Hamas and Israel have confirmed that Hamas's deputy leader Salah al-Aruri has been killed in an Israeli drone strike in a suburb of the Lebanese capital, Beirut. The two sides have been at war since the October 7th Hamas attack on Israel, which led to the Israeli assault on the Gaza Strip. The Lebanese militant group Hezbollah called it a serious attack on Lebanon and a dangerous development in the war. Donald Trump has challenged a ruling in the U.S. state of Maine removing him from the state's upcoming primary ballot. Trump's lawyers filed an 11-page appeal seeking to overturn the ruling last week by Maine's Secretary of State Shenna Bellows. Bellows used the 14th Amendment to the Constitution as the basis for the decision, which forbids people who have engaged in insurrection from holding office, citing Trump's role in the riot at the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. The Trump campaign is also expected to contest a similar ruling in Colorado, setting up a showdown in the Supreme Court over whether states can keep Trump off the ballot. Embattled Harvard president Claudine Gay has resigned following allegations of plagiarism and questions over her ability to respond to anti-Semitism on campus. Her tenure of just over 6 months has been the shortest presidency in the university's history. FSN's U.S. correspondent Nick Harper reports.
Claudine Gay has been Harvard's president for just 6 months and 2 days. Her decision to resign comes after weeks of anger and questions about her ability to adequately lead the prestigious university. In early December, she appeared before a congressional hearing and struggled to answer questions about whether calls for a genocide of Jews would be in violation of Harvard's rules. Allegations of plagiarism in her scholarly work have followed, leaving the president unable to stay in position at one of America's top universities. I'm Nick Harper in Washington.
A Chinese foreign exchange student who was the victim of a cyber kidnapping has been found alive in the U.S. state of Utah. Officials found the student in a tent in freezing temperatures. FSN's Tony Waterman has more.
According to police, Zhuang was found very cold and scared, but uninjured. He had isolated himself in a rural part of Utah, manipulated by his remote kidnappers into believing he'd be injured if he didn't do as they said. Police say he took pictures of his own captivity, and his parents were scammed out of $80,000 in ransom money. Utah police say a number of foreign students have fallen prey to cyber kidnapping in recent months, where victims are tricked into holding themselves captive by remote kidnappers who monitor them through video. Tony Waterman, Texas.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
What is up, all of our liberty-loving friends? This is a special episode of Dumb Bleep of the Year. This is one of our recap episodes for the voting for Dumb Bleep of the Year. So we're going to be covering each month, and then the winners of each month will go into a quarterly semifinal, and then we'll bring that into the final four. And of course, the live group, the Fed Haters Club, will be voting on what's going to win Dumb Bleep of the Year. The winner will get a trophy that says that they won Dumb Bleep of the Year, and the person who submitted that specific Dumb Bleep in the live group, or it could be on Twitter, or it could just be me, will get a trophy to put on their mantle at home. So let's get in to Dumb Bleep of the Year. And it's going to be called California. And it's going to have 2 stories from California that people have been talking about this week. Charles, if you want to...
You want me to take the first one?
If you want to do the honors on the first one, that we can do.
All right. This is from Free Beacon. California bill would redefine infertility to give men access to pregnancy treatments. California lawmakers are advancing a bill that would redefine the inability of men to get pregnant as infertility and entitle them to insurance-covered fertility treatments. Let me read that again in case everyone fell asleep. California lawmakers are advancing a bill that would redefine the inability of men to get pregnant as infertility and entitle them to insurance-covered fertility treatments.
Question, though. What about a trans man that can get pregnant? Now, is that an oppressive man over the infertile men who can't get pregnant?
I seem to be infertile.
Yeah.
Myself.
Like a trans man comes in, he's got ovaries.
I think you're asking too many questions.
Stuff. Okay.
Yeah. It just is now.
That was racist.
Yeah.
Okay.
The legislation, which passed the Senate late last month and is about to be taken up by the Assembly, would require employer-sponsored insurance plans to cover all non-experimental fertility treatments, including artificial insemination of pregnancy surrogates. Supporters of the legislation have touted it as an overdue step toward fertility equality for LGBT people.
What about the Qs?
Well, they don't like them anymore, I guess. Freshman State Senator Caroline Minhava said, quote, "It will ensure that queer couples no longer..."
Sorry.
They left off the Q.
That's the Q. I'm just driving me nuts right now.
That's because she's going to spell it out here.
Okay.
It will ensure that queer couples no longer have to pay more out of pocket to start families than non-queer families. This bill is critical to achieving full lived equality for LGBTQ plus people. They got everyone there in that time. As well as advancing well-rounded and comprehensive health care for all Californians.
It will
I know what you're thinking.
It will ensure that queer couples no longer have to pay more out of pocket to start a family than a non-queer family. Meaning, if a guy and a girl are together and they're
non-queer,
they're together and they have one drink too many one night and things happen. Okay. And then that creates a baby. That should be the same as when two guys, they want to have someone else, use their sperm and impregnate a surrogate and have that person carry a baby. If that costs more, if that situation costs more money,
then it's unfair.
Then a guy and a girl having sex in their bed at home, if that situation costs more, then that's inequality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
You're spot on. The fertility insurance bill would expand the coverage mandate for employers to include IVF and expand the legal definition of infertility to include, quote, a person's inability to reproduce either as an individual or with their partner without medical intervention. Infertility would no longer be defined only as a disease or medical condition, but also as a status, such as being in a gay or lesbian relationship or being single.
Here's infertility. A person's inability to reproduce as an individual or with their partner without medical intervention. So human nature, the nature of Homo sapiens is wrong. Okay. And if two guys can't do their thing and a baby develops, then that's infertility as defined by this law and is a new status. It must be covered by insurance. How do you think insurance is going to react to this? Jeez.
State Farm's already pulled out of doing home insurance in California. Did you see that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah. Of course, the left blamed it on climate change because too many wildfires. Actually, California has laws saying that they can't raise their prices.
Yeah.
Any more than a certain amount to insure the risk. So maybe that's the reason. Okay, here's another one for you. Let's go. California bill would punish parents who don't affirm their child's gender identity. A newly revised California bill would treat parents' refusal to affirm their child's gender identity as a violation of health, safety, and welfare in the context of custody disputes.
You know, it's all of these things that we've been talking about. And we used to say this all the time. Like, it's so good. Like, it's such the right thing to do that they have to force people. You know,
of course. Idea is so good they got to be forced, or you got to be threatened that your kid could be taken away. The bill, which already passed the state assembly, would require judges adjudicating such disputes over transgender identifying children to favor a parent. So you're in custody battle right now. Okay. Trans identifying children to favor a parent who affirms their child's gender identity. Earlier this week, the authors released an updated version that specifically defines the health, safety, and welfare of a child to include a parent's affirmation of the child's gender identity, a change that the bill's opponents worry will open the door to non-affirmation being treated as abuse. And so why would it not? If health, safety, and welfare also include affirming. It's one of those conversations, Charlie, where it's so maddening, it's so insane, it's so off the wall, it's so removed from reality that it's tough to even explain what you feel when you talk about it, because you're talking about children who know nothing. They don't know what they're talking about ever at all. And if you don't affirm whatever their feelings are on this specific thing, by the way, because they know the main difference between the man and the woman, for sure. As a 7-year-old child, they definitely know. If you don't affirm that, then that means you could be taken away from one of your parents. I'm going to play this clip. AB 957, California State Assembly member Wilson explains her reasoning behind considering this bill. Let's hear it.
This particular bill adds the very important factor that affirming a child's gender identity is in their best interest, which is what your question is about. Why does it actually say that in an affirmative way? And it really is because if you have a 7-year-old who's talking about having a potential to say, being able to articulate that they believe that they are not the same gender as they are biologically, then it should be affirmed, and through care, it should be determined. And that's what we did with our own child. And that would give the ability for a parent who wasn't sure to affirm and get their child the care that they need to make that, so they can begin to articulate that determination. But by saying and rejecting it in wholesale, then you're essentially rejecting your child. And that is not in the best interests of a child. We should be affirming our children in every possible way and getting them whatever appropriate care they need, whether it's based on their gender, whether it's based on how their studies are in school. It doesn't matter. Our children should be affirmed. And this is saying that.
Hold on. Whether it's based on their gender or their studies in school, I didn't even hear that part yet. Basically, whatever your kid wants to do, you should affirm it, Charlie. I'm not a parent, and so I can't talk on this. But Charlie, I want to give you some advice. Whatever your kid wants to do, you should affirm it. Don't want to do your homework? Doesn't matter. Okay? You want to take pills to...
It doesn't identify as a homework kid.
Yeah. No, neither. So...
Cookies for breakfast?
My God.
Candy for breakfast? That's right. You want to be a monster truck? Don't worry. I got the shocks on order right now.
Let me tell you, you know the Jordan Peterson...
I can replace his legs with shocks and wheels, you know?
The Jordan Peterson...
Monster truck affirming surgery.
Original controversy had to do with him refusing to use the pronouns that people were trying to force him to use, okay?
Well, kind of.
He didn't refuse to do it. I get it. He didn't outright refuse to use it.
He was speaking out against a bill that would compel speech.
Yes. Okay. And I remember, I've said this a bunch. My wife was like, why is he making such a big deal about it? Why not just do it? Who cares? This is why. This is the answer to that question. We've also got a friend who comes on the show sometimes. I'm not going to give any names. Who says, I don't care about this kind of stuff. I don't think it's important And this is why these things are important. We're talking about a state removing children from their parents because the parent did not agree to block their child's puberty or whatever else the reason may be. I realize that people can move out of the state or whatever, but normally California tends to bleed out into the rest of the United States. The reason that this conversation matters is because this is the logical conclusion of the conversation. If you believe those things, if you believe all pronouns, then this is the logical conclusion. It's either true or it's not. And if it's true, then you're going to have to legally define and protect it with all the ways that the government legally defines and protects everything else that they do. And this is why those little annoying conversations actually do matter.
All right, so King County board member shouts she's glad to support sex offender nominated to homelessness board.
So they have this board of people and they're trying to figure out what to do about homelessness. All right. They're trying to help marginalized communities.
This is in Seattle, I believe, right?
Yeah, I believe so. They're trying to help these communities, and they nominated this guy to the board, homeless, I believe. The homeless guy.
He was, yeah.
And someone takes issue with the fact that this guy is a sex offender. And by the way, not just your run-of-the-mill sex offender. We're talking with minors, by the way. I was looking at that. And someone is like,
also convicted.
Yes.
By the way.
They're like, I don't know about this whole sex offender on the board thing.
He has touched me inappropriately.
And someone gets very upset about this. Of course.
It's the response. It's the response from the co-chair. That's the dumb bleep here.
Can I say something? We have a code of ethics on this board, and Thomas Whitaker Raven Crowfoot is a sex offender, a repeat sex offender, and I have had bad experience with him.
So I don't touch you up because we can't disclose people's personal business here, right? Okay. And although that's public disclosure, like we have no right to out anybody in this space.
Okay. I thought thinking
right? Like that's just not okay at all. Okay. And I won't stand for that as a co-chair.
No,
we're not
here
to discover people's backgrounds. And actually, I'm glad that if that is the case, that he's here, because sex offenders are another population that is most vulnerable that don't have housing.
Okay.
People do change, and people
she has touched me. She has touched me. So if there's a meeting where he's
Christina, you need to take this to the police then. Christina,
I have.
This is not the forum.
Stop, Christy, stop. As the co-chair, I'm telling you that you cannot talk like that in this meeting. I will not have that here.
Believe all women.
If anyone wants to talk like that, you will be muted and then removed from this meeting.
Jesus Christ.
Help us.
Just when you think it can't get worse.
So
it does. These people are absolutely delusional.
The response was, if it's true that he is a sex offender, I'm glad that he's here because sex offenders are one of the,
they represent.
No, it's had something to do with one of the most vulnerable communities, is what she said. Sex offenders are one of the most vulnerable communities
that don't have housing.
That don't have housing. Yeah, that's it.
God.
This was actually, I found a little bit better clip than the one that we were watching earlier, but the other one had more stuff in it. She goes on to talk about they were concerned with equity, and that's why it was important for the person to be there.
Yes.
Now, I do have to give the follow-up to this. The person, Colston, that was doing the yelling, that was upset, was asked to resign. I don't know what's happened since then, but originally she is refusing to resign. So the people running the board, people in the government, I guess, or whoever's board it was, said, we're not going to have a multi-time sex offender on the board, especially if he's assaulted one of the other people that's on the board and also children or minors, at least. Like, we're not going to have him on the board. That's pretty easy to say. So they did come out and say, of course he's not going to be on the board. And they said that this person's reaction was ridiculous and asked her to resign. So
the dumb bleep is her.
It's her, Colston.
It's absolutely
This is what you do when you find these victims, Charlie.
Incredibly angry. Incredibly angry. Also, I don't know if you noticed on the screen or not, but they had LGBTQ2IAS+.
Well, you had the 2SL or 2S.
Mm-hmm.
What does anyone know what 2S is?
Double sex offender. It's part of the
Two-spirit
marginalized group.
Can someone tell me what two-spirit means? What is a two-spirit?
Bipolar?
I don't. Are we? What is that? Two-spirit?
That's a gender.
Is it too late, Charlie? Is it just too late? We let this go too far, huh?
I don't know. Part of me thinks that sometimes.
Okay, that was number 4, the King County sex offender on the board. These are some responses to the affirmative action decision from yesterday, starting with RFK Jr., who we just heard yesterday is going to be at Freedom Fest, which we're going to be there as well, and we got to try and grab him. And
you want to grab him? By the what?
No, I don't want to do that. Okay, I want to ask him politely if he wants to come talk to us.
That seems better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we need to make sure we do that.
In response to affirmative action, he says, regarding the Supreme Court banning affirmative action in higher ed, I know many Americans feel that purely race-based decisions are unfair. However, this feeling misses important context. Race-based decisions are fine in some elements, you know? The effects of racist policies going back centuries are now self-perpetuating. Affirmative action understands this and uses race-based policies to undo the effects of racist policies. You fight racism with racism, Nate. It's like you fight fire with fire. Same thing.
Yeah. Any libertarians still out there fighting for RFK Jr.? Well, they're definitely doing that. Listen, I saw Clint talking. Clint, we talked with him quite a few times, and he's been big on RFK Jr., and I understand why. I was talking to a friend, John, the other day about how I was considering RFK Jr. just as a big old FU to the administrative state, the bureaucracy, to the alphabet agencies. I get it. I get the idea. But he's not a libertarian. He's still a tyrant. We just happen to like a few things that he says, and there is a big difference between those things. All right, we got to remain principled, and that's why we never said that we were thinking about supporting RFK Jr., because he clearly has the tendency to go this way on several different issues, and you got to be ready for that. You got to assume that's going to happen. Gavin Newsom says that people want to whitewash our nation's history by not having affirmative action, I guess. That's whitewashing our nation's history. They want to bring America back to the era of book bans and segregated campuses. We cannot let them. Of course, that's in response to the affirmative action ruling. The super weird part about that, of course, as people have pointed out, is that affirmative action is banned in California and has been since 1996. So I guess that means they have whitewashed America's history in California. No one knows anything about what's happened in the past in our history in California whatsoever. They're just a big conservative, I don't know, Handmaid's Tale, terrible slave state, really, is what they are. And they've banned all the books. Really dumb from Gavin Newsom there. And then Erica Marsh. We talked about this yesterday. Folks, it does look like this was a real tweet. She tried to fix it, and it wasn't good. Erica Marsh yesterday said, today's Supreme Court decision is a direct attack on black people. No black person will be able to succeed in a merit-based system, which is exactly why affirmative action-based programs were needed. Today's decision is a travesty. It turns out it was a real post because she tried to clarify. She said, allow me to clarify. This tweet, which is being manipulated for propaganda and misinformation by Ultra MAGA. The intention of my tweet is to highlight that prior to affirmative action, there existed a supposedly merit-based system for black individuals to gain admission to colleges. However, these institutions employ racial profiling to prevent black individuals from attending under the guise of this merit system. Well, guess what, Erica? under this ruling, that would be illegal too. Okay? Because they ruled 14th Amendment does not allow you to consider race in the admissions, meaning if you find that they are racially profiling people and holding them out of schools, which once again is a dumbass idea that these woke colleges where the disgust, the puke of society is oozing out into our streets, that they're just going to start banning black people from going to college automatically. Yeah. It's the epicenter of white supremacy, these colleges, you know. All of a sudden that's going to happen. It's just not. So she wants to emphasize that her statement in no way suggests that black individuals are less intelligent than people of other races.
It's exactly what it suggested.
It literally suggested.
Yeah.
No black person will be able to succeed in a merit-based system.
I don't remember when I learned how to read, but those words in that order definitely suggest black individuals are less intelligent and they can't work hard or anything else like that.
Well, you must be part of the ultra MAGA who's manipulating this for propaganda.
I just love people who know how to take accountability.
So good.
You know?
Yeah, especially
rather than
women.
being like, okay, I chose the wrong words. That's not what I meant. Like, let me rephrase that and where my heart actually is. No, first of all, I'm going to blame everyone else for misinterpreting my words, because that's not what I was trying to say. It's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. I can't anymore.
AOC.
I've reached my breaking point. I'm serious. I don't
break.
Well,
don't do it.
I'm at the point.
You're about to break.
Like
that Linkin Park song, you know? And I'm about to. Anyway, AOC says if SCOTUS was serious about their ludicrous colorblindness claims, they would have abolished legacy admissions, aka affirmative action for the privileged. 70% of Harvard's legacy applicants are white. SCOTUS didn't touch that. That's because no one was suing over Harvard's legacy applicants. Okay, if someone wants to bring that, if someone has standing, if they were harmed, then they can try and bring that to the court.
So what is Harvard's legacy? That's like
I think that's when you like your family went there, or maybe, I don't know if it's donors, but maybe it's a family thing. Do you know?
All she said was 70% of Harvard's legacy applicants are white.
Yeah, who gets submitted.
Doesn't mean they get in.
Yeah.
They're legacy applicants.
Yeah, so we still don't know what the admissions are.
I love how she is saying what she's saying to a black man who wrote the majority opinion.
That doesn't matter.
I mean, last I checked, she's a woman of color, but she's of, Latina descent, or she may clarify. She may identify as Latinx. I don't know.
Latinx.
But anyway, I believe they're lower on the totem pole if I got my, oppression totem pole correctly.
Well, I haven't had mine updated yet to the newest version of
Although he's
victimhood.
A black man.
Yeah. You know what? Let's get the voting going. We've got this Elizabeth Warren tweet from yesterday also. If you listened yesterday, an extremist Supreme Court has rolled back the march toward racial justice and narrowed opportunity for all when literally they were not admitting people based on their race. Won't stop fighting for young people with big dreams who deserve an equal chance.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing. To be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up